Welcome to Alt Perspective. My name is Tim. We are back for another episode once again. I am joined as always by our pastoral presence, Christy Russell. And we are...
Embracing it. I'm embracing it.
You're embracing what? Oh, the pastoral presence?
Yeah.
People who embrace it don't usually say, I'm embracing it.
You can edit it out.
No, it's fine. No, it's comedy.
No.
Anyway.
It's comedy. They know I've been fighting it all along,
Yeah,
so I'm just saying.
You need to embrace
it.
It has
I'm embracing it.
Meaning. It's got deep lore. It's been in our show since the beginning, basically. I mean,
I'm trying not to have that response every time that you say it.
I got the gang. I got the gang pulling up and calling you that too now.
I know. I'm like, oh, Timothy Charles.
All right. Well, so this week we were having a hard time figuring out a topic for this week. And so I pitched it to the team to give me topic ideas. They gave me topic ideas. We settled on one. And then Mom came in, threw a curveball, and she was like, I actually really want to talk about Stranger Things. And I was like, what? You want to talk about a secular TV show?
I do.
So that's cool. So last week, if you don't know, this is kind of almost a pseudo sequel to last week. So last week we used Stranger Things and the events surrounding the second to last episode of the show as inspiration for last week's episode. A lot of Christian responses that Mom and I honestly didn't think were very Christ-like to the events of that show, and also just kind of out of touch from the culture. So we wanted to bring it back into the culture and just kind of give our viewpoint on, and what we thought was a biblical viewpoint on how we should have been responding as Christians to a secular show introducing a gay character that honestly was gay from the beginning. And a show that had introduced a gay character 2 seasons prior as well. And all of a sudden it was a problem. So that was last week's episode. Go check that out if you haven't. We thought it was a good episode. We got very good feedback from the team. They liked it. So go ahead and check that one out. This week, though, we are going to be talking about Stranger Things itself. And you might be thinking, Tim, this is a secular TV show. We've only reviewed Christian, or at least heavily Christian themed media. Book of Eli, Passion of the Christ, Promised Land. You know, we've done only Christian themed media, right?
Yeah.
Things that were targeted at a Christian audience or accidentally targeted at a Christian audience. This is a straight up secular show. So approach this one with caution. I think it's safe to say Mom and I both enjoy this show. We're not trying to force you to go watch something that you don't want to watch. So that'll be the disclaimer is, yes, we are approaching this from a place of, I think we both largely enjoyed the show. I could be wrong. We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
I think that, but that being said, again, we're not here to endorse the show. What we want to do today isn't your typical review. So in the past, when we've done reviews, we've done a breakdown of the plot, characters, the way they present biblical themes in the show, that sort of thing. And we're going to take that last part where the presentation of biblical themes, and we're throwing it over this whole show. So this isn't going to be so much a review of Stranger Things, as in, is it a well put together show? Did they do a good job? That sort of thing, like we usually do. We are going to be doing a straight up spiritual analysis, we'll call it, of Stranger Things.
Yeah, I like that.
So welcome to the Stranger Things spiritual analysis. And we're going to be talking about the entire series with spoilers. So if you haven't seen the show and it's something you are interested in, we're going to spoil the crap out of it here. So go watch it.
Yeah.
If you don't care and you just want to hear our odd untypical Christian-like take of the show, tune in and enjoy. We hope you enjoy. And
Yeah,
take what we
and
have to say to heart.
yeah, can I do a little bit of an intro
Yeah,
for
so
this one?
Mom, let's start there. Let's start with you
Okay.
because you were the reason we're doing this. I had
Yeah.
no intention of doing a secular show anytime soon because of your feelings on secular media and how we should approach it on our show. To the point
Mhm.
where I've been working on something in the background that I want to do and release, but I've been hesitant to because of your feelings
Yeah.
towards um my approach to secular media. So, let's start with you. Why'd you want to do this, Mom? Like just
You
overarching,
know,
what inspired you to
I can
want to do
honestly
this?
say it I kinda wanna start it's kinda been a journey for me, to be honest. If I look at this with all just everything in me, with just being raw and authentic and real, it's been a little bit of a journey for me, and I say that because I had no intention on watching the series. No intention, ever, about watching the series. Not because I was against it or anything, I just didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I was that out of touch. So I wanna start there, um, and that's part of why I Stranger Things, is because I
Oh,
have
hold
had a
on.
kind of an awakening.
Repeat yourself there because you cut out.
Okay. What I wanna do is I wanna start in the beginning of the journey because I have had an awakening, so to speak, I believe a spiritual awakening. And, because I had no intent whatsoever. I didn't have any clue about what it was about, because that's how much I stay away from this type of content. All right? And that's Tim alluded to that. And so, but when Tim brought up the subject matter that we talked about last week in how we respond to LGBTQ and in the media, we were doing that, and one thing led to another, and when we talked about doing that, I felt I needed to educate myself on the show before we did that episode, last week. And so I prayed and I said, "Lord, I what should I do?" And I felt he was saying, "It's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead and watch the show." And going into it fully unaware, other than you told me it was like a sci-fi thriller type
Yeah.
deal with a touch of
Touch of horror.
maybe possibly touch of horror. And I'm like, "Okay, can I handle this?" Because I do not do horror flicks. I do a little sci-fi. I do like some thriller, in a sense of I like mystery. I love that kind of
Suspense,
problem
mystery,
solving.
yeah.
Suspense, mystery, that type of thing. So it's not like I only watch, Hallmark. In fact, I don't like Hallmark, all right? I mean, I don't like those kind of movies. That's not my thing.
Is it
So,
because it's cheap, cheesy
um,
garbage?
should we review Hallmark?
Why do Christians love Hallmark? They have no
I
taste.
don't know. I don't know, and it's not all that and all pure anymore, so I don't even know why they like it.
Anyway,
Um, so anyways, but so I want to kinda take you down my journey, my path, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because I think I almost felt like we left last week's unfinished because we kept wanting to talk about the show.
yeah.
Because I decided to go ahead and watch it to try to get, and I never got through the whole thing. So I was still in this suspended state of, I think I like the show, not sure if I like the show, but I get why Tim likes the
I
show.
also think it's funny
And
because I was encouraging her not to watch it.
yeah,
I
he said,
I
"Oh,
kept
mom, I don't
texting her,
think."
"Mom, you're not gonna like this." Like, I kept saying that because I know her, and I was like, "You're not
Yeah,
gonna like this. This isn't your thing." And I mainly said she wasn't gonna like it because of how much the tone matures and shifts in season 4. Like, I knew
yeah.
season 4 was gonna be a pain point for her. But,
And indeed it was.
we're jumping ahead, though. So continue, Mom. What, any more thoughts on, like, why you wanted to do this? What
Yeah, and what I think, and I think when getting that release, I believe, from Holy Spirit, to go to watch it, to watch a show that has content in it that I would not normally view. It was an act, and people may disagree with me. They're probably gonna think, "What? She's lost her mind." But for me, it was an act of faith. For me, it was trusting that God would protect me, that God would lead me, and if I was supposed to quit watching at any time, that He would let me know and guide me. And if for so if in the show, I had to stay tuned to that part of my being. I couldn't just watch it for pure entertainment. I could not do that. That wasn't the purpose of this. It wasn't to watch it for entertainment because it's all that. It was, I believe, for me, God used it for a training tool. And other Christians are gonna be like, this woman has lost her whatever. But here's the thing. I believe the Lord showed me that we I won't even say we. I wanna go to me personally, that I have done a lot of shutting things down before praying over that. And what I mean is, just because I once had a trauma, or because I once maybe had difficulty with something, or because of things that had been passed down and from generation to generation, as far as this is what we don't do, we shouldn't watch, we shouldn't, I shut things down automatically before even praying about it. Not based on the Lord or His leading, but based on, this is my standard. This is, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have standards, we shouldn't have foundations, we shouldn't have guidelines and boundaries, but I'm saying everything we do have needs to be in conjunction with Holy Spirit leading us on the issues, because for whatever reason, and I think I know the reasons now, I believe the Lord was saying, it's okay for you to watch this. In fact, you will learn something through it.
Hmm.
And so I went in it with an open heart, open mind, not to the enemy or the devil, but to the Lord showing me how, what am I gonna be willing to derive, be willing to pull out of, be willing to look deeper, be willing to allow me to use whatever to shape and mold your systems, what who you are becoming. Because I'm here to tell you, at 54 years old, I am still growing, still learning, still changing, still adapting, and I have not arrived. And the problem with people my age and older, we think we've arrived and we know it all. And that, because we this was passed down and we always have, this is the way it is. End of story. We don't talk about it. We just say it. We speak it, and it's law. And this is where we shut down generations, and we lost generations because of our closed-mindedness. And so I believe I've learned a lot. And there's things I like about the show, things I think they did well, and things I think were a little weak. And in the end, I think I was a little disappointed, but yet it was okay. And so there's a lot of things in this that we will look and we'll touch on as we go through.
Yeah.
You said the word, and the reason I said, well, wait a second, is because you said mom largely enjoyed it. Now, I did enjoy some of the content. I enjoyed some of the storyline. I really did enjoy some of the characters, and I didn't want them to die.
I think the show's strength is its characters and character dynamics
Yeah,
and relationships between characters. I think that's the show's biggest strength.
yeah,
And you're not the only one, I think, who ended up slightly disappointed by the final season. It's kind of the wide narrative right now surrounding the
yeah,
show that there was a
sure.
lot of disappointment from the final season. I think they stuck the landing in the final episode for what they were trying to do. I think
Yeah,
this
I think
season as a whole was probably like, I mean, I think it was a little weak compared to what we've gotten, especially coming off season 4, because I think season 4 is the best season in my opinion. You might
mm,
feel differently just because of the content that you were faced with in season 4, but I
sure,
think
yeah.
as a whole, creatively, I think it was the strongest season. And strongest season since season 1. Season 1 might be the
I was gonna
strongest. I
say
don't know. I'm
season
kind of
1
I'm
was
kind of tossed up cuz season 1 was pretty strong. But um again, this isn't really the goal with this episode though, isn't necessarily to criticize the show itself, but to biblically criticize it, cuz
yeah,
we what mom and I found through Stranger Things, and I'll kind of go here first. I think it's important for us to have this discussion on our show specifically,
Yeah.
because it is such a cultural phenomenon. And
Yeah, I agree.
I think we need to analyze, I think the goals for this pod should be, we need to analyze why it's such a cultural phenomenon, and we need to analyze through analyzing why it's such a cultural phenomenon. um Mom and I are in agreement that there is a lot of spiritual undertones in this show. There's a lot
Yeah.
of parallels to biblical themes. There's a lot of parallels to spiritual warfare themes. Um and we're all about spiritual warfare here. We do a whole live stream on it every week. And I think this is going to be a really interesting episode because we're not just reviewing the show. And you might get some of our personal
Right.
opinions about events in the show, but it's largely, this episode is mostly going to serve the purpose of addressing a cultural phenomenon through a spiritual lens. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we need to try to do this episode. All that being said, um I think we can start from, I don't know how you want to approach this, Mom, in terms of, do you want to just kind of talk about the things that stood out to us throughout the series about through a spiritual lens? Is there anything specifically that you're
Yeah, why
just
don't
so excited to
you
address that you want to jump right into? Or did you want to
No,
kind of
I
take it
think to
season
take
by
it
season? And
I think
and
this particular, series, I think we need to take it season by season because it to for those, because I believe, and this is one thing I was gonna say, for those of you who don't wanna watch the show and feel that you shouldn't, don't watch the show.
yeah, yeah, if
But
you have a
I
conviction about
wanna
it, that would be my encouragement in
I
anything.
would like I would like to challenge you to watch our podcast through and hear what can be spiritually gained, and then pray over it in the future, not just concerning Stranger Things, but about every cultural phenomenon, everything that sweeps across the culture. It's like the number one show, I believe,
On
on Netflix
Netflix right
right
now,
now.
it's definitely top 3, if
And
not
I'm
number
going to
1 at
tell
the
you
moment.
this, my friends. I will tell you this, it's not just among people who don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
It's among Christians, maybe wherever they're at in their walk with Christ. It's not just among what we would call people who don't know Christ, or unbelievers in the
Yeah.
Bible. This is from what I see and what I've heard from friends and people all around, that this is a show that is very widely popular amongst churched people and unchurched. We'll
Yeah.
just put it that way. Let's simplify it. Churched and unchurched. So when we as Christians, I guess I want to say this, I Christians need to be open to either reviews like this, or actually know what we're talking about instead
Yeah.
of making judgment calls. Like
Exactly.
that's what we talked about last week,
So,
making a
yeah.
judgment call. I don't know that we get the privilege of speaking into something if we don't know what we're talking about.
I'm a big believer, and I want to expound on that because I'm a big believer, and I've always said this to Christians specifically, because growing up, anytime there was a pop culture phenomenon of any kind, whether it's a song, or whether it's a song, or a book or movie or show or whatever, anytime there's a pop culture phenomenon, Christians have something to say about it. But often what I've found is those Christians aren't willing to go there and actually consume the media that they're judging, to
Yeah.
the point where they're literally judging a book by its cover, by the surface level of what they know about it. And the thing that I've found in life is, in everything, you can't judge something based on the cover. This
Mm,
is a saying for a reason. There's depth to it. There's context. There's meaning. That would be exact. And flip the tables for Christians specifically. Flip the tables for just a second in your mind. How upset do you get when you hear a secular person talking about the Bible from a very surface level, unresearched perspective? How upset do you
mm.
get?
Boy, that's a deep thought.
That happens too. And
It
I would
happens all the
expect that
time.
if that's the reaction Christians have towards that, why would we Why would we be upset when other people are upset that we won't actually go look at secular media and go, hey, you know what? Maybe I should look at what this is before I judge it.
Yeah.
That's just the way I've always seen it. And so, and if it's something that I'm not willing to step to as a Christian because I feel like it's going to impact me spiritually, then I don't talk about it with authority.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just where I leave it. And so um that being said, I think that it's very important for us to be willing to go to these places if we're going to be speaking about these things. That's just my 2 cents on that situation. I don't know if you agree, disagree.
Well, I do agree to a certain level, as far as I believe that it's okay if you choose not to uh engage in, but then don't, but when you don't, and this is, I guess, what I want to say, when you don't engage or get educated and know what you're talking about, and you decide to talk about it with opinion behind it, that is judgment. That is basically judging, but what are you judging it against if you don't know what the content is? So I would agree with you right there, Tim, on that level. But I what I believe is, when we do communicate at that point, if there is no education, if you haven't watched it, if you haven't sat yourself to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna figure out what it is it's saying, so that I am making educated statements, and I am speaking from a place of knowing what the content is.
Mhm.
Then it's not that you can't speak at all. It's that you need to come at it from, you know what, I have nothing, and so I don't know about this. And so I can't come against that. I can't come against that if I don't have an idea. Now there is a level of, um, I think it's okay to say, I don't believe that we should put our eyes on these things.
Yeah.
And if these things are in it, then I don't think we should watch it. That is okay to say,
Yeah.
because that's simply an opinion, but don't judge the actual show itself of the content that's in it.
I
Does
agree.
that make sense?
No, and that's what I've been saying to you for years.
Yeah.
Is just because something's got content that you disagree with in it doesn't mean there's not necessarily value in
Yeah.
that thing. Doesn't mean there's not something that you
Right.
can't extract from it. And this goes back to my overall philosophy of creation echoes creator. I've been saying
Yeah.
this to you for years, and it's not something I don't think you understood until you watch Stranger Things and put yourself through that. Because
Yeah.
and we came to this realization yesterday when we were talking on the phone that, like, I've been saying to you, I've been pitching to you this idea that I've had for years of creation echoes creator,
Yeah.
of analyzing secular entertainment, media, books, music, whatever, and extracting a spiritual message out of it, extracting a biblical
Mhm.
perspective out of it. And you never understood that. There's always, it's like I said to you yesterday, like
I think I had a limited
there's always been this,
understanding.
it's
Yeah.
always like whenever I talk to you, there was always this like, that's cool. Like, but there was always this piece missing. And I've always
Yeah.
gone back to our conversations like, what am I not telling her? Or is it just something that she can't comprehend? And not that
Mhm.
you're stupid, but that I think it was and we came to this realization that I think it was a thing with you in your spiritual walk that you
It
hadn't
was, for
approached yet.
sure.
So
Yeah.
before we get into all that and get into the plot of the show and why we think there's something to extract here spiritually, and I know this is a lot of buildup, but I want to do this justice. I think we're approaching that if we don't do it right, if we don't go into deep detail, I don't think
Mhm.
that it's going to be perceived the right way. And I want to make sure that it's
Yeah.
perceived the right way, that you hear our hearts, that you understand what we're trying to do here. So before we get into all that, let's pose the question, why do you think, Mom, that Stranger Things is such a cultural phenomenon, that it reaches generations of people, different generations, different audiences, all this stuff? Like, why do you think this show in particular, now having viewed it, has that type of reach?
Well, I can tell you what, first season for me drew me in. And so that's why I think that was the strongest season, because if it was able to draw me in,
Mhm.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I put it that way, and I think the draw for me was the time period first. First, that was the initial thing. It was a time where it was a different way of living, and it instantly brought me back as a 54-year-old. It brought me back to living in the 70s and the 80s, right? That was my growing up period. I would have graduated in '89 when they graduated. That's when I would have graduated high school if I didn't drop
That's
out.
wild. I
So,
didn't realize you were
isn't
that
that
close,
wild?
that you were that
Oh,
close to their
yeah.
age. That's
So I
wild.
said everything about this echoed inside of me
Mm.
because of the time period and the nostalgia, and from the arcades to the Dungeons and Dragons and the Satanic Panic we talked about, and
Mhm.
and how they brought all that kind of stuff in it. It was actually literally the case. This
Yeah.
is not a this is in no way, and I think that's what drew me in. It was in no way a misrepresentation of
It
that
was an
time
accurate
period.
representation.
It was
Yeah.
accurate. It was very accurate. I mean, I remember feeling the feelings. I remember going through a lot of what these characters went through
Mm.
personally, and, a Christian household or not, because I did grow up in a very strict,
Yeah.
guarded Christian household in some ways. In other ways, they let me run the streets and let me run wild and don't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Another accuracy that you say, "Well, those kids wouldn't be out doing all that." Oh, yes, we would have.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I rode my bike. I would get up in the morning and go ride my bike all around town. We go up and do things. We were doing crazy. Didn't have to come home till the lights started to go down or were down. Like
Yeah.
if we were
Be
coming in
be
the door, we were good.
be home by the time the streetlights come on type of thing.
Yeah, and literally it wasn't a basement that we went down and did our thing. We were into Star Wars and Little People back then.
Yeah.
And so we went up into my friends that had this open attic. It was the coolest attic
Yeah.
ever. It was at the end of the block. And we would go up and play Star Wars and Little People and all these different things.
Oh, so you are
And
on your Vecna vibes. You were hanging out in the attic.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So mom's
I
the
was in the
villain is
attic.
what she's getting at. No.
I'm the villain, yeah. So, but the one guy that was my age, there was the I say boys because I mainly played with boys when I was young. I was a tomboy. We've been down this road before. But the kid across the street who was actually my same age, he was so into Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
right? So, and this was the parents were all like, "It's Satan, it's Satan," and so, um, so this is the whole thing. Just like right away, it's like this is not fake.
Yeah.
This is this was, my friends, my reality.
Yeah.
So that's how I got drawn into it. And yes, at first it was like, getting over some of the cursing, and it wasn't like vulgar words, it was words that sometimes when I stub my toe,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I'm
And
just being real with you.
and the reality is that the cursing's used accurately here. I mean,
Yeah,
like
to a level,
like
to
the
a
thing
level,
is
yeah,
like they hit you with it right in the first scene with the kids in the basement playing D&D.
yeah,
They're hanging out there.
and that's how it
They're
was.
cursing with each other, and anyone who's gone through childhood and has grown up, that hasn't changed. When your parents aren't
Yeah.
around, you're cursing like a sailor.
I hear it on the playground all the time when I take the grandkids.
Yeah.
When there's older kids there, it's all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. It is reality. And I think that's where the Lord was bringing me through this is like this isn't this isn't put on for this show. This is actually if they wouldn't have done that, I
Yeah.
don't know that it would have been an accurate portrayal of that
And
time
this is the
period.
thing. Like I look back at the Goonies growing up. The Goonies is my probably in the top 5 favorite movies of all time.
I think it's probably Goonies is probably a lot of people's favorite.
It's like right there with Bill and Ted. Like it's one of my top movies of all time. And I look back at that and I remember when I was growing up, you guys when I was watched the Goonies for the first time, you guys were like, "Oh, I don't remember all the language in this."
I didn't.
And I was like, and I was looking at the movie and I'm like, this is what it is like when kids aren't around their parents. What's the problem?
That was always your argument with me.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's always been my argument. This is an accurate portrayal of what kids do when their parents aren't around.
Mm.
Like, it doesn't
We call it
bother me in
school.
that. So it doesn't bother
Yeah.
me in that sense. And I think if you had analyzed it at the time, I think what you would have realized is like, yeah, he's right. Like, this is what, because the Goonies takes place in the same time period. It takes place in the
Yeah.
80s. And I
Yep.
think if you had been looking at the Goonies through this same lens, you would have been like, and I think the reason you didn't realize there was a ton of language in the Goonies is because the Goonies came out in the 80s.
Well, it
So
didn't matter to me
I
then.
think exactly. And so I think you
It didn't
didn't
matter to me.
realize there was that much language in the Goonies because when you saw it for the first time, you were that kid,
Mhm.
more than likely. I'm making assumptions, but um so yeah, I think that's interesting that you bring up like just the cursing first because it's like, yeah, it's accurate. And I think
Yeah.
that's probably why you were able to get over it. But what else, Mom? Like what else jumps out to you about this
Well,
first season?
I wanna move on from the cursing, but I wanna even something a thought just came to me. So, the words that were popular then, the curse words,
Yeah.
were what they used
Yeah.
fluently.
Yeah.
They didn't use, like, say, the F-bomb. I will
Yeah.
say the F-bomb because I don't like that word. They didn't use it till later on
There's
in the
one
show.
there's one F-bomb in the whole show, and I think they used it in the best way they possibly could have. I was like, that's fair. I'll give you that one.
And and so it was like, okay, that was like an exclamation point on everything,
Yeah.
and we won't even go there right now, but I wanted to say that it's not like they pulled today's culture and today's fluency into a movie from yesterday.
Right.
They
Yeah.
actually and that's why I just wanna pinpoint that accuracy. Those words were used, but it was rare.
Rare.
That
Yeah.
word was rare. It was more the words that they came up and I think how the parents even would say, and we'll get into that later on, how they would respond, "Language." Oh,
Yeah.
it's so right
Yeah.
on. That's how they language.
The whole dynamic with Mr. Wheeler and Dustin,
Mhm.
because Dustin's the only
Mhm.
one who cusses around him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and
Rolling his eyes
yeah,
and
yeah, like when he's there looking in season 2 and he's there looking for Mike or Nancy and they're not
yeah,
there. And and he's like, "Man, you're no help at all." And he's like cussing or whatever. And
yeah.
then and Mr. Wheeler's like, "Language." And he's like, "Oh,
And
it's
he walks out.
yeah.
Yeah. But I give them I don't know how I can do that. I mean, here I am. It's so funny. It feels weird doing this
Yeah.
this podcast, Tim, because I feel funny as a shepherd saying kudos to them for using the right language of the time period
Yeah.
instead of filter putting all the other stuff in that I think is much harder
If it
to
I think if
handle.
you I think if the language had felt out of place, you wouldn't have made it through the show.
I wouldn't have. If
But
I would have gotten what we
because
got in the
yeah.
yeah, I
Because
would have
I've
stopped.
been rewatching through the earlier seasons because this is the thing. So I watched through season 5 as it released. And I was actually sitting, and this might be where I'm at in my own personal walk with Christ now, but where I'm becoming more sensitive to this stuff.
Mhm.
But
I did have
um
issue with season 5 with language,
in
but
season 5 it felt like there was a lot more in season 5. But
yeah.
as I've been rewatching through the other seasons because I want to watch it front to back now. And as I'm watching through the older seasons, I'm like, no, there's the same amount of language. I don't know if it was just
You know what I
used
think?
differently or
You
in
know
a
what?
better way or
Well, I think they used what I struggled with in season 5 was, they used the name of the Lord in vain
they used
so much.
that might be what it was
Over the
because
top,
I think they
over
use
the
I
top, and
think they
it hurt my heart.
specifically I think they use GD a lot in season 5 compared to
Well,
the
but
earlier seasons. They do use it a lot in the earlier seasons, but I don't
yeah.
think they use it as much. And maybe that's what it was in season 5 for me.
Well, I was talking about the name of Jesus. They
Yeah.
used
They use it
JC
a
a
lot.
lot.
They use it a lot in the earlier seasons too. That's I didn't realize how much they used it in the
Maybe it
earlier
just seemed
seasons.
more out of place to
That's
me.
what I'm
Maybe it
saying. I
seemed
think
more
there's something about
pushed.
season 5 where maybe it just feels more forced into the script or something. I don't know. Um
I will say I did notice something, and maybe it was the Lord, maybe it wasn't. Noticed the ads during season 5 were from a Could
Hold on.
that have something to do with it?
Hold on. What did you say? You cut out.
I said one of and I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but I did notice the ads when I was watching, because
Yeah.
I have Netflix with ads,
Oh,
were
okay.
from a different sponsor the very last season,
Oh,
and I don't know
interesting.
if that has anything to do with it.
I don't know. I don't.
I
We
don't
have
know
ad
if that
free,
can
so
play a part in it.
we
Yeah.
have ad
So
free.
I'm not even gonna say who that is, but I will say that's the part I did not like about season 5. I was disappointed that there was just so much of that.
Yeah.
They could have used different language, I think, in that, but
Oh
or
yeah.
not as
Yeah.
just back off. I just don't think there's any excuse for using JC.
Yeah.
I don't even have as much struggle with GD as I do JC.
Yeah. That one's an easier one to swallow, I think. Probably because it's more tame in nature, you know.
Maybe. Yeah.
But I think it again, maybe it goes back to what we were just talking about on the spiritual warfare stream where Jesus's name specifically just holds so much weight. That's the name we cast out demons
Yeah.
with. That's the name that has the power, right?
Yeah.
Like God
Exactly.
is a general God specifically is a general term. When you say the word God, you could mean anything in reality.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have as
Yeah.
much weight, right? And when
Exactly.
in the Old Testament in the Bible itself, they didn't have a word that meant they didn't use a word that meant God in their language when they were referring to Adonai. They referred to him as Father or
Yeah.
Adonai
Yahweh.
or Yahweh, or they had names that they referred to him as. So when I think of the word God in terms of like GD, I'm like, I know what you mean, but I'm also not as offended by that. But with Jesus's name specifically, that has weight, that has power, and we
Yeah.
know it
It
as
has
Christians.
yeah.
And so I think when you're demeaning it in that way, it hurts a little bit
Yeah.
more. And I think that's why you had
It
a
does
problem with
hurt.
it.
I did. I and there's straight up I had a problem with that. There's just no
Yeah.
question about it.
And
And
I
I
did
don't
too. I did
remember
too. It took me back when I was watching as well. I want you to know that.
and well, and put it this way, I remember everything else accurate, to be accurate. All even the cursing, all
Mhm.
those things were accurate. How it was used and the kids and all that. I just don't remember JC being used like that. I don't.
That flamboyantly.
And so that it
But you
was
also
not
have
a
to
flamboyant.
remember
There was still a reverence
you
even
also
amongst unbelievers. There was a reverence. Like we weren't out to we weren't out to offend people.
yeah.
We weren't out to make a statement so much. It was starting and you can see it in the characters. Like at the graduation,
Yeah.
he was like outright rebellious
And
when
I loved
at
it.
the end.
That scene was awesome
And
though.
but that even that scene I had to go, "You know what?
But you know what that
There
scene
was that turn of the tide
I was going to
where
say
there was this rebelliousness against authority
I was
starting to
going to
kick
say
in."
look at the time period that the final
Yeah.
season's taking place in. It's taking place in 89. You're right on the
Mhm.
cusp of the 90s
Yep.
rebellious alt rock emo phase, like
Yep. It was
disrespect of
just
it wasn't
really shifting.
it was moving into my time period of
Yeah.
we don't just, you know, we don't just do things in the background like we did in the 80s. It's rebellion against authority. It is
Like, "I'll show you in your
anarchy.
face, I don't
Yeah, it
care."
is anarchy, middle finger to
Yeah.
the face. And also though, Dustin's little scene there at the end during the graduation, that was a direct callback to what Eddie was going to do at his graduation, remember? So
Yeah, so he did
he
it
was kind
in
of
honor of
honoring Eddie
Eddie. Yeah.
because that's exact when Eddie's going on his little speech in the cafeteria about what he's going to do at his
Yeah.
graduation when he finally graduates. So he was kind of trying to honor Eddie, especially with the Hellfire Lives t-shirt, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so I actually saw that as kind of a heartwarming scene in a way, in an odd way.
Yeah.
Like, even though he's being
I
openly
wasn't
rebellious,
offended necessarily by it.
I
I
was
got it because that was accurate.
cracking up at his mom, just like, yeah, like she's like clapping it. Um, but we're jumping ahead. So season 1, let's kind of dive into the weeds here. Looking at this first season from this biblical perspective, Mom, is there anything
Mhm.
that stands out to you spiritually about this first season?
The first season, I will say, introduced I was so I'll be honest, I was so wrapped up in the nostalgia
Yeah.
uh, of the show, and I was really surprised that I was kind of enjoying it
Mm.
because I didn't expect to enjoy it. Like I said, it did grab me. It caught me. It pulled me in, and but a couple things stood out to me because I lived in that time period. Is I see the hand of God in it, and I see also the hand of the enemy in it.
Mm.
And meaning I see this is a spiritual realm that we're dealing with, that
Yeah.
this is a true thing. And the problem is we look at stuff that this stuff isn't real, but it is, and that's the draw to it. There is another realm. And even as we go into spiritual warfare, Tim, this is an acknowledgement that there is a godly realm and there's an ungodly
Yeah.
realm. There is good and there is evil, and it exists.
Yeah.
And so I think what you see just a people that have nothing to do with God, really. They're just living lives. They
They're
were
just
normal.
living life. Yeah.
These people that were portrayed in this movie were like my friend's parents,
Yeah.
not my parents,
Your friend's parents. Just the
my friend's parents,
average
just
Joe,
normal people.
go to work,
Yeah,
come
they
home.
lived in this
Yeah.
regular, earthly, normal realm. This is their normal. My parents actually never lived in that realm.
Yeah.
They were always in this other everything's a spiritual battle and I'm not talking against my parents, but everything is spiritual. Everything needs to do everything is the word of God, and how and what we shouldn't there was a lot of rules of regulations. So I was actually wanting to be normal,
Yeah.
like my friends, kind of like you said. It would have been
I was
in our
envious. Yeah. I was
last
jealous of my
yeah,
friends
you
because I
were
was like,
envious or
man.
jealous. And so here's the thing, I was envious of my I was envious of them because you know what they had memberships at the YMCA, and they could go swimming whenever they wanted,
Yeah.
and I had to buy a pass. So I
Mhm.
had to go buy a pass. They went down there almost every day. They rode their bikes. I had to buy a pass.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the norm. I didn't have the Atari. I didn't I did video games? What's a video game? That's where my parents were
Yeah.
at. They had no clue. We had 3 channels. We didn't have the cable then,
Yeah.
It was just we were always different.
Yeah.
My family was always different, but yet they were very aware of the spiritual realm because of family history, and because I have family members that were demonically oppressed and possessed.
Yeah.
So that's why there was this ultra sensitivity to it so to speak, all
Yeah.
right, to the good and the evil. So, mind you, I'm coming at it from that perspective. So yeah, I saw in this show immediately I saw the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily see it as because I said to you, I don't think there's any spiritual content here.
Yeah.
It's just nostalgic. I think I made that comment to you.
Yeah.
And but as I got deeper into it and got into season 2, that's where I really began
Yeah.
to
And
see this spiritual content.
we're back. Sorry for the little break there. We had
Long break.
the long break. Yeah, we had some interruptions, so you're gonna notice a little cut in the video. Not that it really matters. So
Change in
the
clothing.
only thing you'll notice is a change in our clothing. I've dressed appropriately.
Oh, you did, didn't you? When did you get that?
I've had this t-shirt. I've worn it on the pod before.
Have you?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
I
just
guess I didn't
probably
even
never
notice it.
noticed because
Never knew what it was.
I think I pointed it out
No.
one time because I was like, I was sitting here with the t-shirt on and I was like, oh, let me put my necklace on that has the verse about the armor of God on it.
Yeah, over your hellfire.
Over my hellfire to offset it, you know.
I'm surprised I didn't comment.
But you didn't know what the Hellfire Club reference was.
I
Yet.
didn't.
You didn't understand
I did
it,
not know what it was.
Anyway, so I've dressed appropriately for the second half of the pod here. All right, so to jump back in though, we'll just kind of start from season 1 again and redo that little portion. We didn't get very deep in anyway before we got interrupted.
Okay.
So season 1, I also think we should structure it a little bit differently. So I think
Yeah, we took a long time.
I think it might be because there's 5 seasons to get through. I think and because this isn't a review of the show, I think what we should do, how we should structure this is because it's a biblical analysis of the show, a spiritual analysis of the show, if you will, we'll just kind of bring up in each season what is relevant to the conversation, I think.
Okay.
Um,
Instead of the whole.
yeah, it's not a review of the show, and we were
Okay.
structuring it like a review, and I think it'd be more appropriate if we just analyze the parts of the show. So there will still be spoilers and things, but we'll approach this from the idea that you've consumed the show as a viewer of this pod, I
Okay.
think is the best way to do it, like, and if you have no idea what we're talking about, I apologize. This one's just not going to be for you. I guess, but yeah, so I think season 1 is very interesting because this is where we start to see it's introducing the upside down. It's introducing, so what I think the spiritual parallel in season 1 for me anyway is you have this unseen realm that's starting to bleed into the normal everyday lives of these people. Like it's kind of like you mentioned, they're living their everyday lives. There's nothing spiritual about their lives necessarily. They're just kind of living their everyday lives, and then all of a sudden they're kind of forced into the scenario where they have to deal with this unseen realm. And
Yeah.
you see, especially by the end of the season, how it kind of changes their life forever. Like
Yeah.
they're all of a sudden they're in this world now that they know there's more than what the naked eye can see, and they just have to like kind
Yeah.
of live in that world and accept it for what it is. And it changes their perspectives on life and everything. And I think that really echoes what it's like when you're kind of a baby Christian
Mm-hmm.
and you acknowledge for the first time that there's this unseen realm. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you start getting hit with these spiritual attacks and you don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you think?
For real.
Do you have any deeper thoughts on that, Mom, on season 1?
I think you're like nailing that on the head. I think, and I would say from that perspective of, you know, looking into the baby Christian's life and looking into this show, I can really see how this stuff takes people and throws
Mhm.
this whole other um realm at them, and they're so, I guess they just don't understand it. And the problem I see, or what I, not problem, but what I can say in the spiritual realm is, when looking at it, the Christian, if we as Christians, when we're likening it to the spiritual realm, the baby Christian realm, coming in as a new believer, all of a sudden you get your eyes open to something demonic, which happened to
Yeah.
you, Tim.
Yeah.
It happened to you. And you were like, Mom, what is this? Let's talk about this. And we talked about it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, if we were doing as we're supposed to as believers, as if I was doing as a mom, not only your mother, but also a
Mhm.
spiritual mother of the faith, if I was doing my children right and justice and all those things, I would prepare you for this at the appropriate age.
Yeah.
And I would, instead of allowing the enemy to be the one to expose you to this realm, I would say, "Hey, son, I want you to know that there's this realm that you are unaware of."
Yeah.
And I alluded to it at times in my life, because there was things I wouldn't watch.
Yeah.
There was things I kept myself from, and you didn't understand, but I told you, "Hey, it's just I know this stuff can be real."
Yeah.
And so, but that I didn't go any further with you. I really don't know why I didn't, especially all the things that you watched. And I kind of allowed you in some ways, at once you hit a certain age, to do a little bit of your own navigating and figure out. I tried to let you discover some things on your own. Maybe I did too much. Maybe I didn't walk with you through it enough. But I think we could take away from chapter 1, or not chapter 1. I said chapter because that's how kind of how they do it in the show.
It's kind of how it's
Chapter
laid
1,
out. Yeah.
chapter 2, it's kind of how it's laid out. But from this first introduction,
Yeah. To this world.
where
Yeah.
Will gets introduced to this
Yeah.
world,
Kidnapped and yeah.
kidnapped and taken in by this world. And this is something that I think that if we as seasoned Christians will, when we bring people into the fold, not just drop them on the side of the road somewhere and say, "Hey, have a good life."
Yeah.
But this is a really good example of why we need to disciple,
Yeah.
not in an over spiritual way, but just sit down with new Christians and new believers and say, "You know what? You're gonna encounter some crap in your life, and
Yeah.
that crap isn't always gonna be natural. Sometimes that's gonna be the enemy trying to pull you back into
Mhm.
the evil spiritual." And we're talking about this on spiritual warfare. It's gonna be the enemy trying to pull you back into that realm
Yeah.
instead of you. He doesn't want you to give your whole life to the Lord. So, if we're gonna do a spiritual reflection and how this could parallel
Mhm.
the spiritual forces, the good and the evil, I believe that we could get a lot of takeaway as new believers and as seasoned believers on how to do life just a little different
Yeah.
in the quote church realm because we fall short.
Yeah.
We're teaching stories like Zacchaeus was a little wee little man
When
and
Zacchaeus is like literally a blip. It's a
a blip.
blip. It's
Yeah.
not even that, like, I remember when I read Zacchaeus recently, reading through the Gospels.
Hmm.
I remember how big of a deal like they made Zacchaeus' story, and they didn't even growing up.
They wrote a song about it.
They didn't even touch on the importance of Zacchaeus' story. Like I didn't
Yeah.
even really understand. I thought the importance of his story was that he was so enthralled by Christ coming into the city that he
Yeah.
had to get up and see him. But that wasn't even the most important part of Zacchaeus' story. To me,
No,
the important part of his story comes after when
because there's repentance.
he's this man of means and the
Yeah.
reason he's so enthralled with Christ coming into the city and he wants to give to the ministry
Yeah.
and he's doing it as an act of repentance for his own life
Yeah.
and the way he's treated people. That's
Exactly.
the importance of Zacchaeus' story, but that's totally missed in Sunday school.
Oh, yeah, we clean it up. We clean it up so clean that
Yeah.
you can't even tell this guy was any other than a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really he wasn't, like, shown as a hero, but the
Yeah.
story was just, "Oh, it's a fluffy duffy story." It's like,
Yeah.
"Ooh,
But the
Zacchaeus," you know?
it's a cute little story in Sunday school
Yeah,
about this guy who's so enthralled with Jesus that he wants to see him, so he gets up in a tree. That's what
yeah,
it's is in Sunday school. They don't even go to the second most important half of the story where it gets into he wants to give to Jesus's ministry and he wants to do it as an act of repentance. It's like that's totally missed in Sunday school. I didn't even know that about
yeah.
Zacchaeus till I read for myself. Um What I think another parallel is here, Mom, though, in this first season, especially what's most prominent to me is the way the enemy attacks us through children.
Oh, for
And
sure.
that's prevalent throughout the whole series. And I think that's why the
Yep,
kids are such a core part of the series because and it's said in season 5 too. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but Vecna says that who turns out to be the
yeah,
maid bad, who we haven't met yet in these first couple seasons. But Vecna says to Will, like, you were so easy to break and mold
yeah,
into what I
yep,
needed. And
because of your
so
weakness and your
because
insecurity, yeah,
because of your weakness, your insecurity, and your children's moldability is what he points to specifically. And I think we see that echoed in our real spiritual battle in real life against the enemy. I think he does use children for that reason
yeah,
because they are so moldable. They're so innocent. They don't see the world the way we see it as jaded adults. We're so jaded that if the enemy popped up right in front of us, we'd be like, that's a cool special effect. Or like, we would be like,
yeah,
we wouldn't really think anything of it. And a lot of us are sort of suicidal in certain ways. Like because of our jadedness, because of our lack of purpose as adults, because we're not living out our purpose a lot of the time, I see so
yeah,
many adults my age just lost. And they're
yeah,
so jaded by the real world that they're just like, they welcome death almost because it'd be relief from what,
yeah.
it's
Well, it's that lostness,
yeah,
it's that searching to fill the void that only can be filled
it can only be filled by the
by
Holy
Jesus,
Spirit. Yeah, exactly.
Holy Spirit.
And I think we see that. I think that's a really good parallel in this first season of why he specifically targets the kids of the town, right?
Yeah,
Because that's how he works in real life too. He
yeah,
targets our kids. We see a huge spiritual battle going on against our
yeah,
kids right now in the public
yep,
circuit, and there's not much we can do about it.
Right.
Like because we're trying to fight the battle on the flesh and blood plane. But really, as Christians, we know that this is a spiritual battle. And yet, for some reason, Christians are still approaching it as a flesh and blood battle.
Yeah. I would I would I would say that in this case scenario, in this show,
Yeah.
the portrayal, they 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 basically put out the weakest link first.
Yeah.
And that's what it says in the scripture. It says, "Be careful," and because the enemy goes around prowling like a lion,
Yeah.
seeking whom he may devour.
Yeah.
And we see that engagement of the evil one, the enemy, in Will's life. Like he initially attacks him, hits him hard, kidnaps him, takes him over, holds him captive until a rescuer comes.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And as parents, I'm going to go here as parents and grandparents, we are meant to be watchmen over our children,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual watchmen over our children, meaning we put them out there into a secular world. And I'm not saying you got to do any drastic measures. What I'm saying is, if
Yeah.
we're going to put them out there in the secular world, we better be prepared to fight this battle with him. And he was not only was he weak, and he had a confusion he was dealing with, a
Yeah.
struggle. He was insecure, and the enemy in this, the evil one,
Mm-hmm.
which we now, like you said, and we know as Vecna, took advantage of this vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
and took him captive.
Yeah.
And a- at this point in this movie, I do find it interesting as we move, or not movie, as in the show, as we move into the rest of this season, where we see the mom
Mm-hmm.
already understanding the weaknesses. We see that it's behind the scenes. She doesn't speak it. She
Yep.
doesn't even confirm it when she's asked
Yeah.
the question, but we see the main secret or the main frailty or weakness and confusion that this young man is dealing with.
Yeah.
And so what I would say here is that parents, know your children inside and out
Yeah.
as much as you can. Be aware, make them your priority. God first, children next,
Yeah.
then everything else.
I was gonna say, I think that's the
Or
cool.
God, family,
That's the cool thing we see about Joyce in season 1 is she understands her son on a deep level, which is established from the
Yeah.
jump. Especially in the scene that we always joke about with between her and Hopper, where she says that, he's bullied in school, he's not like other boys.
Yep.
And she even alludes to the fact that, her ex-husband used to call him the F word for gay, and I'm not going to use it on here because I don't want to offend people.
Yeah, we don't want to be offensive.
But she uses that word that her ex-husband used, and Hopper, jokingly says, "Well, is he?" And it's kind of the first illusion we get that this character is potentially gay moving forward. And so, but her having that deep understanding and connection to her son, I think helped her quickly understand that, one, he's not dead. He's just been taken. And
Yep.
her, I think, having this connection to her son almost in a spiritual way, having such a deep understanding of him, was able to help her reconnect with him in this pseudo spiritual realm, this alternate dimension when he's been taken there. And we see her having an understanding that where he is, that he's not dead, that he's still alive, that he's here, and there's still hope for him when everybody else doesn't see what she's seeing.
Yeah.
And,
maybe I don't know if they even alluded to it,
Yeah.
if he ran away, but she was so sure of who he was.
Yeah, and that
So
yeah, she
connected,
was so
that never crossed her mind
yeah,
that he
she was
ran
so
away
sure
and-
of who he was that anytime anyone brought up the possibility of him running away she's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not who he is. That's not who he is.
Yeah.
I know he's been taken. I know.
Yeah,
like,
I loved that about her character.
yeah, and I
was
think
just no doubt, no
that
doubt.
like her certainty in who Will was, her certainty as a mother, I think was such a refreshing take on parents too in modern television,
Mhm.
because we don't see parents like that on TV much anymore, that are so
Yeah.
engaged in their kids' lives that they understand exactly who they are as a person.
Yeah.
And I think that was also a rarity for the time too, because it's like you were saying, as an 80s baby, parents weren't
Oh,
engaged in
yeah.
their kids' lives like that.
They weren't. I mean, here's the thing, Tim. I had faith-filled Christian parents, not perfect by any means. In
No.
fact, a little dysfunctional in their own way, but they were so busy providing, and there was such a level of trust or not as much concern in society. We didn't hear about the trafficking and the things. Once in a while, I remember there was like something going on in the hillside there where I lived in Duluth, and that was like huge because everybody was like, "What do we have to lock our windows and put
Yeah.
bar?" Because someone was going around because it was a college city and violating women, and so that was the big thing of the day in our town. But otherwise, children were it didn't it wasn't perceived that we were necessarily the target back then, so they didn't hover like they do now. Parents weren't as like, I go to the store and I'm like, "Where are you? I don't care if you're an
Yeah.
aisle over. If I can't see you, you're too far."
I'm the same way, yeah, with
And
my kids.
yeah, but it's a different now. I mean, they can be gone in 1 second and be by your side and someone could grab them from behind.
Yeah.
There's just this level of such it's a sick society out there.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and it wasn't that way when I was a kid, not to that level. I'm sure it happened because
Yeah.
we know that it wasn't perfect. It was just more everything was more hidden, including sexuality, including, all those things, those private things were not we didn't publicize, we didn't go public with them, we didn't it wasn't, "Oh, let me tell it to the whole world."
Yeah.
As we see later on toward at the very last season, the very last episode, we see that time period in the '80s that it was all of a sudden, "I don't care what anybody thinks, I'm gonna be who I am,"
Yeah.
and the rebellion against authority, teachers, all those things. We see that in the mid '80s, I would say, and they're right on in that. Whereas in the '70s, when this was, I perceived it as it started in the '70s.
It started early
Um,
'80s. It was, I think, the first season's in, like, '81 or '82, I believe. Like, we
okay,
almost cover a
yeah,
whole
that would make
decade
sense.
we almost
Yeah.
cover a whole decade between season 1 and season 5, so
And a lot changed during
mhm.
that. A lot changed during that time. And so I guess what I would say is it was just different. They used to I used to take care of myself at the age of 10 and 11
Yeah.
and be home all day long by myself. My dad worked, my mom was at school. You know, she was going back to college and or back to school to be a hairdresser and so, I was left on my own to run the streets and I did. I did. I every time I go up 21st Avenue, I remember riding my bike down from the very top, never stopping, no stop sign. I should have been dead
Yeah.
just with that thing. If you
Yeah.
know 21st Avenue, that's like Suicide Hill if you're gonna ride your bike down with no
Right.
stops,
Yeah.
and so what I'm saying is it was just a different era. So for my parents, they loved me. They wanted to know me, but they were so busy providing and tried to provide that stable home for me, um, that in a way they didn't know me.
Yeah.
Clue through similar confusion um, as Will did.
Yeah. Um,
And so
yeah.
I'll say that to say this is very accurate for the time period of this show. They really portrayed it well, even how the whole story behind Will's life and what was going on. I
Mhm.
I don't think they did any glorifying of it. That's not how I saw it at all.
No, I didn't either.
It wasn't like this in your face thing. They were just I think they were being true to I wish it wasn't like that, but it was.
Yeah.
This is life. This is what happens and confusion exists
Yeah.
out there. The scripture says there is
I
no temptation taken you,
yeah.
which is common to man, and God will be faithful to deliver you, from that and offer you a way of escape. There will be a way of it's not an easy, it's not a guaranteed way if you don't follow it. We can get drawn away by the enemy. And that's where, again, where I see that spiritual warfare. We get drawn in by that, and the longer we sit in that silence or in that secret,
Mm.
we see because of the secret, there was no intervention or there was nobody to speak that he was loved. He I think he knew he was loved, but I think he was afraid of his friend's response
Yeah.
or the other's response, not his mother. I think he was very secure in his mom.
Yeah.
Um, I think she knew, like we said, but we don't have to sit on that subject the
Well,
whole
and
time.
we'll circle back to that because it becomes more prominent as the seasons go
Yeah.
on. I think all of those thoughts are amazing thoughts, and having the insight from you as an 80s kid, as somebody who, as you said, struggled with a lot of the things that you see Will struggle with throughout this series,
Yeah.
I think is really intriguing. And like I said, we'll dive more and more into that as we go on. Um, but I think this first season, even it's weird because as I was thinking about how to approach this show through this spiritual analysis lens, I was like, I don't feel like there was a lot in the first couple seasons. So I've rewatched the first couple seasons over the last few days.
Mm.
And I was like, man, there's a lot actually here too. I believe it's more
I probably
prominent.
should too because
I believe it's more prominent in seasons 4 and 5, but I believe that
yeah.
it's still very present here. Like I said, with season 1, at first I was kind of like in your boat, Mom, where I never saw season 1 as a very, there wasn't much there. It was just great entertainment. But then as I rewatched it, I was like, oh no, this is how the devil attacks. He targets
Mhm.
children because
Yeah.
they are moldable. You get them young, you got them for life, right? And
Well,
then
that's yeah.
and then this does mirror what it's like to be a baby Christian, just coming into this idea of there's unseen realms that affect our real life,
Yeah.
and how when you realize that, it does change your life forever. And then we see that play out here into season 2. So in season 2, they've seemingly won the flesh and blood battle, right? Of season 1.
Mm.
And then in season 2, this is where we start to see the enemy figure get more tricky in essentially possession, right? We see Will.
Yeah.
This is where there's this particle creature that they refer to as the mind flare, going back to the D&D references. And what it is it's a hive mind that essentially can take over and use beings as vessels.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and this is where you start to parallel with demonic possession. And
Demons, yeah.
this is what I
Yeah.
referred to, Mom, as the callback to The Exorcist, right? This is the
Okay.
this
Yeah.
is the Exorcist season where it's like, each season kind of has a semi callback to an 80s horror thriller flick. And
Right.
I think this season is very deliberately that Exorcist style. Like they're dealing with the possession of Will. He gets this mind flare, using him as a vessel on our side of the tables, right? On our realm,
Mhm.
to infiltrate our realm. And he uses him, and we find out in this season that he was using in season 5, we find out that he was actually using Will to create the tunnel system that we see play out throughout the
Yeah.
season, which I thought was
Right,
a
yeah.
really cool tie back. And yeah, so what do you think of, there's this whole parallel in this season. The prominent spiritual themes to me are that we see what possession is like, and then also what happens when you continue to feed that demonic presence in your life what it wants.
Yeah.
With the whole thing, there's a whole arc in this second season of Will, like he likes it cold, right? So he's taking cold baths, they have the windows open in the middle of fall, like they're feeding it what it wants. And it's not
Yeah.
until the end of the season how they end up getting victory over this thing, as they realize we can't give it what it wants. And so
I'm
they
thinking about this and,
any
I'm
thoughts on
thinking
that
about
you can
this.
elaborate there
Well,
on?
I do have some thoughts because I also dealt in the demonic realm, as we
Mhm.
know. I made myself vulnerable by making stupid statements and putting myself out there. But
Yeah.
I what I wanted to do is for a moment when I wanna just before I wanna make sure we're not moving out of season 1 too fast. When did Nancy was that season 2 when Nancy was experimenting with going to the parties? Was that season 2?
No, that was season 1. So in season 1, we didn't. So yeah,
I don't
season
wanna
1, I
I
was
wanna go back
primarily
over that
focused
because that
again.
was part of spiritual
Yeah,
warfare
because
too.
yeah. Let's not move out of season 1 too fast. Then I was primarily focused on what I was seeing as the spiritual parallels, but I didn't even think of the
Oh, there's so much more.
because season 1 and 2 primarily are so focused on Will. That's where you see
Yeah.
most of the parallels. But I didn't even think of Nancy's whole, like, she's being a normal teenager. She's
Nancy
starting.
and Barb.
Yeah, see, poor Barb, R.I.P. Barb. See, but yeah, Nancy is, she's your typical teenage girl starting out in the show, and she's starting to, get curious with her sexuality, and there's this whole
Wants to be liked.
there's this
Wants
whole
to be
thing. She
popular.
just wants to be popular. She wants to be liked, and so she's starting to hang out with this popular crowd, which is known as the popular crowd in school, and she's dating Steve, who ends up being the goat of the whole series. And it's but she's like, so it sounded like you had a specific thread that you kind of wanted to pull out with Nancy and Barb's arc here, Mom.
So Nancy and Barb's relationship was extremely close. And so what I saw is they were going in, and Barb was going along, remember, to be a protector.
Yeah.
To be able to pull her out of something if she got caught up in
and
it.
Nancy was down with that. She was
And
bringing her along.
temptation.
She was bringing her along as the accountability, right?
And let's deal with this. The temptation was that she would give herself. Barb was worried that she would give herself to this popular guy.
Yeah.
In order to, and because she liked him so much and was just enthralled with him. Listen, I was that girl. That's why.
How can you not like Steve Harrington though? I mean, the dude's just likable and charming.
But Barb was like, "You can't. She was to Barb. I want you to go with me." And Barb was like, "Well, I'll go, but I'm going to protect you." Basically, it was this trust thing. I'll protect you. I'll be there. You'll have me. I'll be the backup. Right.
Yeah. Right.
That was the kind of thing. But through this whole scene, and I don't know if it was two episodes or one episode, but through this whole party going on, which was a small party, mind you, in my eyes, but through this whole partying going on, we see Nancy just get more drawn into this.
Yeah.
She was being lured, or she was being seduced.
Yeah.
Not by Steve necessarily, but just by the life, the popularity,
the popular
the love,
lifestyle,
the possibility of love and affection. And I was there. That's why I'm looking at it through this lens.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the act that she wanted. It was the relationship. It was the affection. It was the acceptance. All these things are so important and so important to us. And I think the enemy, to me, I saw the enemy setting up a situation.
Yeah.
Like a trap.
Yeah. Well, and you see it with the way that, even as much as I like Steve later on, he is a terrible person in this first season until he gets humbled pretty quick by Jonathan. But, you see the way Steve's approaching the situation, right? Like, he brings her to the house. It's just gonna be a small party. It's just gonna be the four of us, It's just a small group of people.
Just tempt.
And so that gets her to go, and then she goes. But clearly Nancy's still got this idea in the back of her head, even though she is bringing her accountability along. Because there's the scene in the car where Nancy's changing her shirt, and they're pretty modest about it. They don't really show anything, just kind of the upper level of her chest. And Barb makes a statement like, "Is that a new bra?" And and like, so you understand, they allude to the fact that Nancy's already kind of got this idea in her head about how the night's going to go. And that she has a willingness to give into that. Regardless of whether she took the precaution of bringing her accountability and Barb along. And and then you see how Steve approaches the situation with, like, Nancy at first denies when he asks her if she wants to shotgun the beer or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, starts making fun of her for being like,
first she's like, no.
At first she's like, no. And then Steve starts making fun of Nancy, and then she gives in pretty quickly. She shotguns the beer, and then they try to get Barb involved.
Yeah.
And they kind of peer pressure her into doing it too. And then when she goes to do it, she messes it up. She gets embarrassed. She goes to the bathroom, and in that lull where the accountability's gone, that's where the enemy almost really gets his foothold, right? And And
Oof.
and that's where, the party really starts once the accountability's gone.
This is
And
such a powerful, powerful
it really is
episode
a powerful scenario that
because
they present here.
so what they present is two go in together. The enemy manages to divide and conquer.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
On
And
all fronts.
conquering
Yeah.
in different ways, conquering in different ways, seducing her into a life that she so wants desperately and wants
Yeah.
to be that, wants that love, wants that affection. And Barb pulls her right into the I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna sit here in the darkness. I'm gonna stay here. I'd rather be here by myself. I'm gonna go home.
Yeah.
I'll be fine to walk home alone, but she didn't you know, this is Nancy telling her, "Go, go, I don't need you anymore." Oh my goodness, the rejection of a friend.
Yeah.
Basically, Nancy was choosing this other life over Barb.
And you feel
This
bad for
threw
Barb in that
you
moment.
f you do, and you feel like it threw her into a tailspin to where she didn't even head home. She
No.
went and sat. We see her sitting on the
The diving
diving
board. Yep.
board of the swimming pool. And in her distraught, all right, in
Yeah.
her depression, because it was dark and
Yeah.
she was feeling rejection, she was feeling left out, but she wasn't going to give to that. So the enemy just said, "Okay, fine." And he starts lurking around
Yeah.
and comes
It
and
literally
takes her captive in her weakness,
Yeah. Literally
just
left
like
her
he took
open.
Will.
In her depression, it literally left her open
Left her open for
to
the enemy to get a
actually
foothold.
literally be devoured. You know?
Yeah, and through the other means, he got to Nancy, pushed down, suppressed her inhibitions with
Yeah.
the alcohol
Yeah.
to push her friend away because I just want this so bad and I'm feeling really good because now my inhibitions are down.
Mhm.
Mhm. And I can this is okay. I'm good. I'm safe. Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with this. Nothing. So yeah, this is more spiritual, not more, but just a totally different level of spiritual warfare than what Will was going through, except for Barb and him kind of were at the same place.
Yeah.
In the same type of vulnerability.
Yeah.
They both had a weakness. They both had a a hidden thing. Hers was more in the moment. His was more hidden secrets.
Yeah.
So uh, that truly is how the enemy works, Tim. You know,
Exactly.
I say this because I don't. This is the hard thing for me. I don't know why I wanted to do this because this is so reflects my life
Yeah.
that it makes me open up and share things that I have never shared before. And I'm not gonna use names, but this I was 16 years old, 15 years old,
Mm.
and I had fallen in love with, like, the most popular guy in the school. He was not a jock, but
Mhm.
into choir, he sang, he did all those things, and we hit it off. Our personalities were amazing, but I was the Christian girl
Mm.
who didn't even go to the public school, and he was the popular guy of
Yeah.
the day, right? And so we dated, and I resisted, but I fell so hard in love with him,
Yeah.
as far as I knew how to love, that when we broke up, everything was whatever. We broke up and he went away to college. I was still in school and he came back home. And you know what I did?
Yeah.
I wanted him back.
Yeah.
So I did the very thing that Nancy did,
Wow.
and I got vulnerable. So I'm saying that's why I think I so connected with this story is because
Mm.
the enemy played on me as a vulnerable teenager, just wanting to be loved. Even though I had good parents, I just wanted more, and I was being seduced by the world and the things of the world. And he started with those video games and things that my parents wouldn't get me, wouldn't allow me to be a
Yeah.
part of, and started getting me those little things of rebellion in me to turn me to get plant those seeds to pull me away from my foundation of Jesus in my life. Even though I knew
Yeah.
the truth well. I mean, it was ingrained in me. I went to Christian school and church like 3 times a week, and it was all there, but the enemy used those little things and planted seeds.
Yeah.
And so by the time I was 15, 16, that's what happened. And then it's here's the thing. I am two people here. I'm both Nancy and I'm Barb
Yeah. You can identify with both of them.
because I can identify with both of them, and I say that because I was Nancy, but then after I was rejected by, or we broke up and things didn't go, I didn't quite fit with the crowd that
Mm,
he was in, and so then I felt rejected and alone, and you know what took a hold of my life? Depression.
yeah.
And I was so hurt that I didn't care anymore about God or anything else, and I
Mm,
rebelled, and I started drinking, and as soon as I found that drink,
yeah.
I found, peace, a temporary peace
Mm,
to calm my mind, to calm those overwhelming feelings of rejection and hurt and wounds and heartbreak, and it just got so deep that tailspin for me, and by the time I was 19, I was headed to Teen Challenge because I was so addicted to alcohol. So that's what warfare is. That's
yeah.
what the enemy does. He tries to take our children out at from the littlest, from my mother's womb until the time I went to Teen Challenge, and then even after, but we can't get into all that.
Yeah.
But this so reflected my life, and I could relate. I could relate. And who I couldn't relate to, I could see my friends in them.
Yeah.
Each one of those, each one of those characters, I could
That's
see
that's what I
my
think
friends
this
in.
that's what I think this show, again, kind of going back to the beginning of this pod where we beg the question, why does this show have mass appeal, right? And I think that's part of the reason is because the characters are so authentic.
Yeah,
Even though the TV show itself is, it hits and misses, it has its highs and lows, and it's not always the highest quality, but when it does hit the highs, it hits the highs, and
yeah,
it's really poppy TV in that sense. It's not perfect, but it's kind of the perfect imperfect show, where it's like, even though it has its highs and lows, the reason it hits so hard and I think people love it so much is because the characters are so authentic and real. And
yeah.
there's a character in the show that everybody can identify with and connect to on a deep level. And then the characters that, like you said, we don't have those deep connections to, we recognize them because we've
Yeah,
encountered them in our real life. Even somebody
yeah,
in the show as crazy as like a Murray. It's like I still
yeah.
love the character of Murray because
How could you not love Murray in the end,
I've
right?
known a Murray. I've known a crazy off the wall conspiracy theory guy, you
Yeah,
know? And so,
and the nerdy teacher, the science teacher,
yeah,
who
and
doesn't know
Mr.
that
Clark,
person?
We all,
Yeah,
yeah. So I think that's why the show has such wide appeal is you can just connect to anybody in the show.
yeah. Before we go into season 2, because 'cause we're probably about there,
Yeah. Is
I
there
wanna say
anything else?
this
I was
too,
going to say, is there anything else in season 1 that you need to touch on?
looking at the people that those characters, those actors remind me of,
Mhm.
there is one in particular that I wanna bring mention of, and I won't mention the name, but he was the guy that was my age, living on the same block as me across the street,
Yeah.
and he was quiet. In fact, when I decided this is who I am and I'm moving forward, and I was breaking out of my tomboy, I was breaking out of that confusion. I was making that decision that
Yeah.
this is the right way, even though I was in rebellion. This is the way that anything other than this, I think I was so scared, and to be honest with you, about that lifestyle taking me to a place I didn't wanna go, that I
Yeah.
resisted because that I was so ingrained in me.
Yeah.
So I think I resisted that, a lot of that because of that, but the guy across the street was just he was quiet, he was to himself, he was a decent I mean, he wasn't a geeky, nerdy kid, but he was the one into Dungeons& and Dragons,
Yeah.
and he had his own group of friends as well. But this guy ended up I found out, oh, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago that he ended up taking his life,
Oh.
and and so I look and the reason I'm bringing that up is because I was going through my spiritual warfare.
Mm.
Nancy was going through her spiritual warfare, Will's going through his,
Yeah.
Barb was going through her own, and then we see this other character, and he was going through his. His parents, I don't believe they were Christians. I don't believe any of those friends that lived around the same block, at least they weren't living it out loud like my parents did.
Yeah.
Maybe they just weren't over the top. That he may have been, his parents might have been Catholic. I'm not sure. But anyways, I say that to say warfare isn't just in your life. And so I want to bring this out. we're doing this spiritual evaluation. So remember, moms and dads, remember brothers and sisters of
Mhm.
your siblings, remember aunts and uncles and friends, that your friends are going through their own private warfare, their
Yeah.
own warfare when you're going through a warfare, and your kids' friends are going through things that you may just be paying attention to your child. But what we see throughout this show develop is, who ends up being close to every one of those kids? Joyce
Yeah.
and Hopper,
Yeah.
the
Joyce and
parental
Hopper.
figures.
I was gonna say Joyce and Hopper. Another thing that I really appreciate about this show is they're the kids aren't alone. Like
Yeah, they have parental
they
figures.
do have their most of their own parents are blind to what's going on for a majority of the
Yep.
show until the very end. When
Yeah.
Mama Karen comes in and blows up the Demodogs with the
That's
laundry.
great.
That was so good. But and then Ted got a few licks in on the one Demogorgon before he got clapped. But anyway, there was I think what's really cool is they made a point to like say these kids aren't alone. Like they do have parental figures that care. And Joyce and Hop take up that parental figure role throughout the whole series, which I think is so cool. And you
It
see,
is very
I really
cool
like,
today
and I know
for today's world.
we're jumping a little bit ahead, but I think this also leans into the Christian value of community, and
Mhm.
you see community through this whole show. They all lean on
Yeah.
each other, and when they're separated, they're at their weakest. And it's
Yep.
only when they're together they're strong, and
They're
everybody's
strong.
contributing. And you also see a moment that still gets me and makes me tear up a little bit is there's a moment in season 2 where you start to see this father-son bonding between Hop and Mike.
Yeah.
There's a moment in season 2 at the very end where when Mike finds out that Hop was hiding Elle for the last year or so,
Yeah.
and he finds that out, Mike's pissed. He's mad at him. And
Yeah.
he starts punching him, and the way Hop responds in that moment is so
Yeah, that was
Christ-like.
quite moving. Yeah, it was very moving.
So Christ-like, because Mike's punching him, hitting him, yelling at him, cussing him out, and all Hop does is he hugs him until he
Yeah,
calms
he
down.
pulls him close
And
and embraces him and hugs
that
him.
is the most Christ-like way that I've ever seen anyone react to that scenario.
Yeah, that's it.
And
You're right.
and it was a beautiful
Very
thing.
moving scene.
And then again, that carries into season 3 where you see Hop and Mike's relationship kind of develop into like this adversarial thing where like
Yeah.
Mike's the boyfriend that the dad hates, but
Yeah.
they end up ultimately connecting at the end of the season, and we'll get there, but they end up connecting at the end of the season, and Hop actually kind of respects Mike, and he kind of almost passes the protector role on to Mike in a certain way, which I think is cool. So this show does a great job at character development as well, which
I think they developed this, and I will say for a nothing Christian, right? No Christians probably that we know of in the making of this, that we know. We I guess we can't really make that judgment
well, you have
call.
to assume. So like, think about before we move on from this point. You think about like The Chosen, how there's people work on that set who don't believe in Christ.
Yeah, so there's probably the
You
same
have to
thing
assume
opposite in
you have to assume the same thing. In fact, we know of a couple. The girl who played Chrissy in season 4, she's a Christian.
Okay.
And
I'm hearing something about the what's his name?
Caleb McLaughlin, I sent you a clip. He
Yes.
after season 5 finished, he was on an interview and he was saying how throughout the process of filming season 5, he was actually working on his relationship with Christ. And so he's grown closer to God over the course of filming season 5 and getting back to church and with his family and everything. And so you know that there's Christians on set and even in the acting crew. And like, so I think it's really cool. And I think that comes through on screen sometimes.
It may very likely do that. And so I think the key for me here was today in society, in Hollywood, in media, not all of it, but you have a definitely anti-family unit.
Yeah.
or actually what may I say, anti-typical mother-father family unit,
Yeah.
agenda, and I'm not trying to be, judgmental in that, but what I am saying is for society today, I think they did an excellent job of not, um, tainting what actually was back then.
Yeah, like you don't see a prominent like none of the sets of parents are gay, right?
Right.
Things
You
like
didn't
that.
see
Like
them throw something in that would have been odd to be public at that point in time,
exactly.
because that wasn't a prominent thing. Like I said, sexuality, things like of that nature were much more private. It hadn't gotten to that place of popularity just to be free and be you and be all out there. People were hiding it for jobs
Yeah.
because of afraid of fear of being fired, which, I don't agree with that. I don't
Yeah.
agree with that bias that you would let somebody go because of that. So I think I would say here is they did a good job at sticking true to time, the period of time, and honoring that family unit, so
Yeah.
to speak. That what was and has been for as far as typical Western,
Yeah.
let's put it that way, family. And so I think, and they didn't make the man weak, which I think that was great. All these men that came out,
Yeah.
like, in the end, ended up being very strong fighters in their own way.
Yeah.
So they didn't weaken them and make them look like imbeciles, even though they were
Even
quirky,
well,
all
even
those
the one
things.
character that they did kind of show as that absent father figure in Ted throughout the
Yeah,
series, Mike's dad, like he was kind of the joke dad throughout the series.
yeah,
But even him, he had his moment in season 5 where he pulled his crap together when it mattered. When it
yeah,
came down to
he did.
protecting his family,
Yep,
all jokes aside, he pulls up with that golf club and gets his licks in, like I said.
yeah,
And I think that
yep,
that's what this show does so well is I think it authentically, even when they show how like, because this show, I think what it does, because we're covering a decade of time, over time you see the kind of breakdown of the family unit in the background.
yeah,
Like you see
yep,
Karen playing with the idea of having an affair with a
having an
younger
affair.
guy, and I'm like, that's like,
But the good wins in
yeah,
that.
and then good wins in that though. Like she makes
Praise
the
the
right decision.
Lord.
She makes the right decision in the end, right?
Yeah, yep,
And
for her
then
family.
for her family, and then Ted, like I said, with Ted throughout the series, like he's a buffoon most of the time, but he does care in his own weird way. Like he's calling the kids out when they're cussing. He's like language, and like he's kind of detached, but he's still trying to be present. And then, but when it matters, he pulls it together and he protects his family. And so I think what this show does really well, and you see Ted and Karen fighting in the last season, like they're clearly having issues. Um, and she's getting drunk, she's drinking her wine, she's arguing with him, and that's why he's out in the yard playing golf and stuff. So like you see real family issues, and
Yep.
you see like how we kind of got to where we are now with the breakdown of the family unit. But again, I think it's all in the name of authenticity to the time period.
Oh, for
I
sure.
don't think they did anything like that out of the realm of reality of what that was like
Yeah.
at the time, you know?
Yep. Even I would say this, and then if you want to move forward, I would say this. Even in you said not everything was like perfect
Yeah.
in the film and that, but even that in itself, I think did justice to the time period.
Yeah. I think what this
All
show
those
does,
little
yeah.
things, those quirks, those things that were maybe just not quite right, I think it was okay because that
Yeah.
it was the '80s for Pete's sake.
Exactly. I think what this show does really well consistently is remind you that it's a period piece, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it does well. But anyway, back to the spiritual analysis, the reason we're here, right? So anything else you want to touch on in season 1 before we kind of move on to the later seasons here, Mom?
That's all I can remember. I I
Okay.
I I didn't freshly watch it now, it's been a little bit, so I can't remember where
I
season
mean,
2
you
picks up, so
you you pop through these seasons within the matter of like a week or two.
yeah,
So I mean,
it was
you
like
you
yeah,
binged it.
consuming
And
fast. I binge watched
I've
it.
never seen you watch anything that way. So it's pretty wild.
No,
Um
and that was with a 2-day pause,
yeah.
or a day and a half pause because I had to deal with that one season,
Yeah.
so
So season 2, kind of getting back to season 2, we kind of already touched on it though. I really think the spiritual parallels here at large are dealing with how the enemy attacks through possession and the flesh. Just the
Yeah.
idea of giving the flesh and that demonic influence in your life what it wants and what it needs to thrive and
Yep.
survive in your life.
Yep.
You would agree with that, Mom?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Footholds. I call them footholds.
Yeah.
You give an inch to him and he will take 20 miles.
Yeah.
And I am not joking because I've been there. I opened one little door and then
Right.
I'm getting delivered at Living Waters here down on 7th Avenue before I go to Teen Challenge. So,
Wow.
and it replicated. That's why I had to stop for a moment in season 4 because it reminded me of those moments where I was taken over and
Yeah.
suspended and went over a pew, and I've told you those stories, and that's why I say, "Tim, this stuff is real. It might
Yeah.
be fake on here, but it's real," you
Yeah.
know? So that's why I needed a moment. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, and I also wanted you to understand, and I think that's why it's important. It was important for you to watch this show too, because it, even though it had the appearance of the demonic and the evil side of the spiritual realm, and it's like, yeah, that's what it's appearing as, but it's also not what it seems too.
Yeah.
So I think it, because the way you were talking about it initially was like, Tim, this is straight up like they're dealing with the demonic right now. I'm like, I know it's supposed to seem like that. And but so
And I think it was on
yeah.
a level.
Yeah.
I do
And
I do
well,
believe it
evil
was
in
on a level.
general, I believe, yeah, we could take it a layer deeper to like,
And there is levels of demonic. There's realms.
yeah, this is what I'm saying is like, this could have been, if we take it into the Stranger Things world, this could have just been a level of the real enemy of of Satan working through this thing, right? And I think so with season 2 though, is there anything else that stood out to you spiritually about season 2, or do you want to go deeper on the possession stuff?
You'd have to recap it a little bit and give me a couple because I should have rewatched it
Well,
too
so
because I
season
did binge
2,
watch
okay,
it.
so I'll just give you a brief recap of season 2 to kind of jog your memory. Season 2, we're introduced to Billy and Max as more side characters to our core 5 in
Mhm.
Luke, Dustin, Mike, and Lucas, Dustin, Mike, and Will and Elle. We're introduced to, and then you have the older kids and Steve and Nancy, and they're dating now. They're dealing with their stuff, and we're introduced to Bob, R.I.P. Bob.
Yeah,
Bob,
Bob. I love
Joyce's
Bob.
New boo. We're introduced to Bob and
Little teddy bear.
Sean Ashton, the goat. I mean, just lovely in everything he's
He
in.
did so good, yeah.
Which is also in itself an 80s callback. I like how
Boy,
the
did he
show
play that role.
I like how also this show consistently brings in 80s actors too.
Yeah.
To kind of fill these side roles with Sean Ashton playing Bob, famously from the Goonies, Mike from the Goonies actually. Yep. And then you see in the latest season they brought in gosh, what's her name? She plays Terminator. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I forget
her name's slipping me at the moment. But I like they consistently do this. They did it with the guy who plays the mayor in season 3 too. He's from the Princess Bride. Like they do this consistently, which I think is really cool.
Yes, they did bring in the guy from Princess Bride.
Yeah.
They did a lot of that.
They
wow,
did.
They were,
throughout the whole
strategic.
series they do that. And then there's callbacks
That's
with
what
like
drew us in.
Yeah, and then there's callbacks like in season 3 with the Terminator like character of that Russian guy who's hunting Joyce.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's cool. So, but season 2, so we're introduced to Max and Billy, and we're introduced to as the new side characters. Steve and Nancy are kind of working through their relationship kind of issues, and the core 5 are starting to get pulled back into this unseen realm with this mind flare entity taking over Will, and that's kind of the core issue throughout the season is they're dealing with the possession of Will from this mind flare entity. And you see Will, they're working in tandem with the lab now. They have this agreement that that this core group of characters will keep on the down low about it all. as long as they help and as long as they, you know, keep it out of the town from bleeding into the town and stuff. And there's a new lead at the lab. Brenner's gone, who was kind of the big bad at the lab. They replaced him with a nice doctor, and all this stuff. So, and then Nancy and Jonathan kind of have their mission throughout the season they want to expose Hawkins' lab. They want to bring this unseen realm to the light. And this is where we're introduced to Murray and his shenanigans and helping them kind of expose what's going on. And so yeah, that's kind of the bullet points of what happens in this season. Like I said, I think the major spiritual parallel here is Will's possession and the idea of feeding it what it wants, feeding your flesh what it wants, right? And giving into those temptations and those things.
Well, but I think we see Max and Billy being introduced. That's a whole nother spiritual warfare.
That's a whole nother spiritual warfare of
It absolutely is.
Childhood trauma in Billy, and that causing him to be abusive and
very mentally abusive and controlling,
and implied physically abusive towards Max as well.
Very implied. So we see this inner wound and hurt towards Billy because,
and Billy's also a little racist too. Racist towards Lucas.
He wanted her not anywhere near them, near her boyfriend. I forget what his name was.
Lucas. They end up having a thing, and Billy's he's very racist. He's very like, hey, there's certain types of people you don't go near.
Yep. And so we see because they moved from a different area. Do you remember where they moved from?
They moved from California. So they're Californians. Yep.
Okay. So we see this family coming in. The home is it's mixed. It's not mixed on as far as race, but it's blended family. We could call it in our period where a remarriage. So Sam is half, right? No, not even just step, right? Step brother, step sister.
So Max and Billy, it's their step siblings. What we find out about their family is that Billy's dad is kind of abusive mentally.
Yes, very abusive.
Clearly, I think it's implied that he serves in the armed forces or served, and he's got his own kind of PTSD that he's not dealing with, and therefore he's abusive towards Billy. And Billy's mom died at a young age when he was young, and it made him angry. We find this out throughout season 3, I think. And Billy's dad married Max's mom. And then it's kind of implied that Max's mom didn't know about this side of him until they were married. But they end up moving from California to the small town of Hawkins. And that's how Max and Billy are kind of introduced into the story. But because of Billy's traumatic past of his mom dying young and then his dad being the way he was towards him, he develops into the typical like 80s badass, right?
Yeah.
Of like, you know, nothing can faze me. I smoke and drink on a daily basis. Like it's kind of like we saw with Hopper in season 1 where
that walks by. And
after every woman, every piece of meat, and he
even the mom. What was her name?
And there's a thing in season 3 where he's trying to seduce Karen, and which is another level of spiritual warfare too that we can get into with Billy in season 3. But season 2, Billy is dealing with his own level of spiritual warfare. Billy and Max are, which I think their stuff is really deep too. And actually some of the most, for characters that were introduced to the show later, they put a lot of work and thought into
she
those
basically
characters.
Had almost one whole episode. Max.
Oh yeah.
And so did Billy.
Yeah. Max and Billy almost, I thought, like, if you're going to introduce characters into a show later, like a season late, you have to put in the legwork. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Right.
And that was the difference too between like knowing who's going to be a mainstay character and who's not. Because like we see in season 1, like Barb dies pretty quick. and then season 2, Bob also dies. And like, but you can tell with how much effort they're putting into Billy and Max that they're going to stick around a while,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know? But the show also has a consistent thing in each season where they introduce a super likable character and then just kill him just to kill him
Yeah.
later. But, yeah, so, but do you have any deeper like analyzation you want to go into in season 2
I
or?
do. The analyzation is I wanna bring a couple things to the surface with Billy and Max's relationship, especially Billy.
Yeah.
So Billy's was a little it was he was much more outright in his rebellion, in his
Yeah.
struggle, in the warfare.
Yeah.
So Max's you'd have perceived she was confident, nothing wrong with her. She was just all that.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't you wouldn't perceive a weakness looking at her character just upfront. But for me, Billy was like, "Oh, dude, I feel for you. I hurt for you
Yeah.
because there's definitely a root of something
There's
there."
something
And
there.
and
Yeah.
what I and it was anger, it was hurt, it was wounds, it was rejection, it was abuse. I mean,
Mm,
these are huge things. And what I wanted to do is we don't talk about a lot of scripture here, but I want to bring up Ephesians 4 25, and I'm gonna read just a little bit because this tells you what
amazing.
these kind of things can do, all right?
Yeah.
Ephesians 4 verse 25 says, "So stop telling lies." And we see that not necessarily sometimes withholding truth can be a lie.
Mm,
It's not always what you speak, it's what you don't say.
right.
So you're lying by not being real. By not being authentic. And
Mm,
we don't look at it that way, but that is a form of a lie.
yeah.
So it says, "So stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all parts of the same body." And so we what I want to expound just a minute because if we keep everything real and authentic, there's no hidden lies, and therefore it takes care of the body as a whole. It
Mm,
doesn't allow sickness or weakness to come into the body, the community, may I say, the
yeah.
community. All right. So, and then it says, verse 26, "And don't sin by letting anger control you.
Mm,
Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry." Then 27 hits it, nail on the head. "For anger gives a foothold to the devil."
mm,
And then it goes on, 28, "If you are a thief, quit stealing. Instead, use your hands." I mean, it just goes to talk about use your hands to work and give generously to others, and don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful so that
mm,
your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. So we could go on to all these little things that give the devil a foothold.
yeah.
But anger is huge. It is the root. Anger is the root to bitterness. Bitterness grows deep roots
Yeah.
and can actually consume you, like we see happening with Billy.
And I think we see it not only with Billy, but we also see it in a different way with Jason in season 4.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
jock that's kind of hunting them throughout season
Oh,
4.
yeah. Anger just,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
You literally see him. It almost becomes
Rage.
like,
His went to a rage.
yeah. And we'll get to that one, but focusing on Billy. Yeah. I see what you're saying with like, because of how angry he is at everything, not just Max, but Max, Lucas, the world. He's pissed at everybody all the time.
Yeah.
He's
And
always
you
looking
see
for
in this,
he's always looking for a fight. He's always looking to be the antagonist. And so you have
yeah,
to wonder, immediately with Billy before you even know anything about him really, like he's angry. Why? What happened to him?
yeah,
You know?
yeah. You almost see with him, I found it very interesting when he was introduced to the other realm, to the evil,
Yeah.
and 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 he comes into that barn and he basically kneels.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it was that you didn't see resistance, if you notice that with
Yeah.
him. You saw him, um, cower down and bow to it because there was already a foothold. You see Billy's reaction different
Yeah.
than the others who resisted or that Billy actually brought as a sacrifice, basically,
Yeah. Well,
and
at that point, the possession of Billy had
had
kind of
taken over.
taken hold and
Yep.
and we're in season 3 now. So I think this is the thing about this show is like I think the plot just interweaves so
They
well
they do,
together
so
that like it kind of at once you've seen it as a whole, you kind of and you have the whole story for each character. You kind of have to pull in from all things. But yeah, I
yeah,
understand what you're saying with Billy going into season 3 from season 2. So season 2 kind of introduces his anger, right? And then in season 3, we see that it allowed the enemy to get such a foothold on him so
yeah,
easily. And whereas in season 2, Will's dealing with possession by force, season
yes.
3, Billy's
Billy's just
willingly giving into it. He's just
yeah,
like,
and embracing
yeah,
it, I
embracing
think.
it. Yeah.
Embracing
At
it and
first,
all
for sure. Yeah.
yeah. At first, I think in the end, we don't wanna get too far ahead, but at first, it was like he had this power, this control, and,
Yeah.
his inhibitions were now gone, and so he didn't care, and he was
Yeah.
just so we see his response to the takeover of the enemy, to the
Yeah.
possession of the enemy, and that is how the enemy works in that possession. I know this,
Yeah.
and so it really mirrored real possession.
Yeah.
All right. And this is where I wanted to kind of bring an awakening to everybody who's watching it, who sees a show with great
Which
entertainment,
it is.
who
It's
parents,
fantastic entertainment.
yeah, and who parents who just are watching it with them because it's nostalgic and they aren't looking for the deeper. This is where I was like, we have to do this, Tim, because I think this is such an opportunity for parents that are believers, that are followers of Christ
Yeah.
to actually talk about the hard things with their kids
Mhm.
because this show is bringing generations together. But if we just sit and watch it as entertainment, we're missing the mark
Yeah.
as leaders of our home. We're missing the mark as watchers,
Yeah.
as watchkeepers. And so this is what I wanted to really bring awareness to, that if you are parents watching this, or whether you don't, I would encourage you guys to watch even our review, or encourage other parents who don't want to watch it to watch our review, so you're aware of your opportunity to minister in these areas to your children,
Yeah.
because they now have their eyes, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
The scales are off their eyes, and they have the potential. They have the potential to see things in a different realm, in a
Yeah.
different way, and this could either make them stronger or it could make them weaker.
Yeah.
So let's go the next step with this instead of just letting it linger out there as entertainment,
Yeah.
because we are missing a major opportunity. And that's why I'm like, yeah, Tim, you know what? At first, I was like, do I want everybody to know I was watching Stranger Things? And then I thought, I don't care, because this is for the greater good. This is for those parents, those grandparents, those people that just don't want to watch it. Well, let them watch Tim and I,
Yeah.
because we have looked at this through the eye. I prayed before I watched this,
Yeah.
and Tim did too. And so we're looking at this through the eye of the consumer, but also through the eyes, I believe, of Christ, to try to extract
Yeah.
the spiritual benefit. And you're like, "How can there be spiritual benefit in this show? There's so much
I
cursing,
think
there's
we've
so much
I
language,
think we've
there's so much
already.
drinking and sex," and really
Oh,
they
you
were
mean real
never,
life? There's so much real life in it?
well, not that, but you know what, I wanna give kudos to the writers again and the producer, that they didn't really go explicit on these scenes.
No. They use
They
modesty when
really were they
necessary.
did
Yeah.
it they did use modesty, and I appreciate that, because it allowed me to sit through it.
But
And because
they did that because they were shooting for a TV-14 rating. I mean, they wanted
yeah,
it to be essentially a PG-13 movie. I think some of the
right.
violence gets up into the R rating personally sometimes, but that doesn't bother me. I grew up on, like I said, I grew up watching The Patriot, whether my dad knew I was watching it with him or not. So like,
I'm sure he did care.
um, so yeah, I think that, but I agree with you, Mom. I think we need to practice as Christ followers. This is what alt perspective's all about. It's about engaging with culture through a Christ-like mindset and through Christ's eyes. How would Christ approach culture? And I don't think Christ, okay, so I don't think Christ would be watching Stranger Things. I don't think he'd be wasting his time. I don't think he'd be wasting his time on entertainment at
No,
all.
because he knows all. He doesn't
Yeah.
need to.
But he's seen it. That's the other thing. Let's think about this. All powerful,
He's aware.
all knowing
He's
God.
aware.
He watched it being filmed, He watched it being edited. He's watched all of the entertainment that you refuse to touch as a Christian. He knows it.
Mm,
Think about
never
it
thought
like that.
about that.
All of the entertainment that you refuse to watch as a Christian, he knows it in and out. He knows it on a deeper level than anyone else. And he saw
He
the
knows the
heart.
writers of it.
He saw the hearts of the people producing it.
Yeah.
And you know what? God was probably thinking the whole time Stranger Things was being produced, how can I turn this for my good?
Mm,
Which is why I think you and I, Mom, as somebody who are approaching this from the point of how do we spiritually analyze this, are
yeah.
able to spiritually analyze it, because we can see the parallels to the spiritual warfare. We can see the parallels to through the Bible. We can look at it and go, hey, I lived this. And
Mm,
this is how
yeah.
I turned out.
Yeah.
And this is how I've seen God work this exact scenario in my own life for good.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this show is so deep and so able to be spiritually analyzed, because without realizing it, the Duffer Brothers made one of the most spiritually ambitious shows I've ever watched,
Hmm. I think you have a point.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we were on Billy. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of analyze in season 2 on a deeper
My heart
levels?
broke.
Season 2 and 3, I
I will.
guess.
Yeah, because my heart broke for him because I realized, obviously, quickly, because of my spiritual discernment,
Yeah.
and because of my own the demons that I dealt with. I will put it that way. They're not mine anymore.
Right.
The demons that I dealt with, I recognized the root of bitterness. I recognized the root of anger because that's something I had to. That's something I laid down later on in life.
Right.
When you were a kid, when Sarah was little, and so I recognize what damage anger can do, and it is a root that grows deep. It these things we don't think, and when that scripture in Ephesians 4, I believe it was Ephesians 4, said that don't give place to it because
Yeah.
it'll get foothold. The enemy, he got a foothold in my life in many ways, and so bringing awareness to it. I watch Billy's character, and I'm like, oh, but I will. I don't want to spoil the last season, so I want to stay there with it. I just began to be
Well, we're
sympathetic,
spoiling the whole
empathetic. I
show.
don't know
We're
what.
not worried about spoilers. So if you have
Okay,
something to say, say it.
yeah, he just in the end to see him come out for the good. Well, see, I'm really spoiling, but he ended up in the end being a help.
Yeah. And what
You
she's
know,
referring to is Billy's arc culminates in he goes through this, essentially processes his childhood trauma, and Elle helping him process it, right?
yeah,
Which
yeah,
is what ultimately puts the nail in the coffin, and allows him to separate from that possession that he's going through. And then him realizing the situation in his almost sober mind, right? And going,
yeah,
yo, my sister's here.
yeah,
And him making that choice to sacrifice himself to
for her.
protect his sister. Um,
Mm,
and
that was so good in the spiritual realm
yeah,
when you look at that.
yeah.
And
Self-sacrifice in the spiritual realm is one of the most selfless things you can do, right? Because that's what our
well,
whole faith is
it's the
based off of.
Christ-like thing to
Yeah,
do.
it's
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
the whole
Christ-like
thing.
mindset of he went from this place of possession to redemption. That's what I'm seeing in that scene
Yeah,
of
yeah.
nobody is too far gone to be redeemed,
Mm,
right?
I love that.
That's what I see in that scene. I see Christ in that scene. Not in the sense that I'm inflating Billy to Christ's level, but I'm seeing the
No, no.
Christ-like heart, right?
Well,
I'm seeing
do
the,
we not
you know,
I was gonna say, do we not see the 2 thieves on the side of the cross of Jesus?
exactly.
One
That's probably a better
one the
parallel,
motive.
right?
The motive of the heart of the one was, "Leave him alone. He
Yeah.
hasn't done anything wrong. He's innocent." The other one was mocking him and saying, "If you're the Christ, get yourself down. If you're the,"
Yeah, yeah.
and so we see the motive, and we see the beauty in this, and this is another parallel. We see the beauty of in Christ. Christ is in between. This is warfare, right?
Yeah.
This is warfare at its best. These 2 men are gonna die,
Yeah.
and we see the one responding to the presence of the good next to him, the presence of God, the presence of Jesus, the Son of God next to him, responding to that and turning his life. And you say, well, how do you know? Because when he defended Jesus, Jesus looked to him and
Yeah.
said, today you will be with me in paradise. And here's the great thing I love about this. It opened my eyes to see so much is he didn't ask Jesus to come into his heart and be Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
He opened himself up to the presence of the Lord and saw the truth of who he was and acknowledged who he was and decided, yes, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. So that's gonna challenge some people out there to think a little deeper and beyond that
Yeah.
at the last moment. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing, and I'm good with it. I'm okay. Even though I've been serving the Lord most of my life, I had my rebellious times, but I've been doing this thing pretty on the straight and narrow and anchored for the last, I don't know, 16, 17 years or so,
Yeah.
maybe even more. I don't know. But what I will say is, that thing is that murderer,
Yeah.
can still come to Christ
Yep.
and I've heard with my own ears because of the field I worked in of people that have asked for forgiveness and surrendered and come to Christ. So, my friends, it doesn't matter how long you've served. We all, if we believe, we all get that same gift of eternal life.
Yeah.
That's where our God is so good. He doesn't judge through eyes of what you can give me. It's, I just want you. I just want you. That's what the
Yeah.
Lord is saying. Come unto me, all you are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That means come unto me, those who are possessed, those, oh my goodness, those who have murdered, those, and I'm going to say it, and this is not easy. If you have children, I'm going to say that word. Those who have taken, I won't say the word, those who have taken advantage of innocent people.
Yeah.
You know what? They still have opportunity to come to Christ. And this is the thing. We got to deal with that.
That's the scandal of
Or
the
we're not going to
gospel,
be
right?
able to do that is the scandal.
That's what
And
makes
if we don't deal with that, we will never
Yeah.
fulfill the Great Commission. We will sit in our pews and continue to grow cold if we don't deal with the scandal and accept that scandal as this is God's truth.
Yeah.
This is what he requires. This is what he asks of us.
That's what makes the
If
gospel, I think, so
it's beautiful.
dangerous in people's eyes. It's
Mhm.
beautiful to those who understand, right?
And it's
But
scandalous to those who don't.
it's scandalous to those who don't. It's
Mhm.
like, what do you mean? I need and I think it might be more on the level of, what do you mean that I need the same forgiveness, the same level of forgiveness that the child offender needs?
Yeah.
That's insane to them.
They
Because
just can't get it.
because they have levels of sin in their mind, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas they have but the fact that you can even perceive evil and you have a moral code tells me that who wrote that moral code.
Mm.
That's where my head goes with
That's
it.
right.
And so when there's only one person on earth to ever have claimed to have written that moral code, that tells me that that person is probably the one I should follow.
That's
and
right.
that person is also the same person who's offering grace for breaking that moral code.
That's right. He says there's none righteous.
Not
None.
one. And that
Not one.
And that tells me we're all on the same level.
Yeah.
So as hard as a pill as it is for me to swallow, now Tim does not have that level of grace. If somebody stepped to my children,
It's taken me 54 years to get here.
Well, this is the thing. I believe that person can achieve forgiveness. But me personally, I don't have that level of grace. If somebody steps to my kids in that way or my wife in that way, they are getting the beat down of their life. And they may not get back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Christ in me does say, I'm going to give them that beat down. And I'm going to beat them to an inch of their last breath. And with that last breath, they're going to have the opportunity to come to Christ. And I'll present them with that. Like that's where I'm at now in my spiritual walk, which is a lot better than where I was, because before where I was they are not getting back up, and I'm not giving them, they're going to rot in hell. That was that was where I was before.
We've talked about this before because, time And that's part of growing in Christ. That's part of
Yeah.
maturity in Christ. That's part of the refining process, and seeing so much life, so much bad, so much good, so much evil, so much
Yeah.
amazing, and I told you that story of the one son of mine that said, "Hey, Mama Russell, you really should get your concealed carry."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I thought about it, and I'm thinking, and your dad even had mentioned something, not that particular thing, but talked about, I should be safe, and all these things. And I'm thinking, why would I get a concealed carry? Because if I ran up against someone and they pointed a gun to my head, I'd probably, because I'm ready to go, I'd be like, you know what? You
Yeah.
can take my life.
Yeah. I'm
But
ready to
just make
go.
sure
You're
you
not.
ask Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go, you're not. So go ahead, but I hope you experience his love and his grace through this,
Yeah.
and you know that I'm willing to let you live longer so you have a chance to come to know Christ.
Yeah.
And that might be, maybe I wouldn't be, maybe in the moment I would be like all hatchet mama on him, like,
Yeah.
whoa, but I don't know. I don't know, but my heart wants to
Yeah.
extend that grace. And I've had bad things happen to my children, uh, and I've had to withhold my anger and
Mhm.
extend grace.
Yeah.
And so the Lord has tested that in me. And
Yeah.
and not only have I had to withhold um vengeance, but extend grace, and not only grace, that grace, he required love
Yeah.
and kindness out of me as well, to where I didn't treat them any different than they did before they hurt my children.
Yeah.
And so that is no kudos to me. That's, thank God that he grows us over time.
Yeah.
And we grow in his grace, we grow in his mercy, and we start to take on more and more of him and more of his character. And that's the beauty of maturing in Christ. So,
All right. So we covered kind of Billy and Max's dynamic and role and the battle they're dealing with throughout season 2 and 3. Um, I think we can now talk about the other side of what Will is going through with the possession. And then there's even another dynamic in season 2 of Nancy and Jonathan trying to expose and bring to light.
yeah,
I think
and they
there's even
do.
I think there's even
So that's what I'm talking
I think
about,
there's even a
that I wanna touch
parallel. Yeah,
on.
I think there's even a
Mhm.
parallel there. So let's start with Nancy and Jonathan because I think um that's a very interesting. There's the obvious with Will, what's going on, which I don't even know
Yeah.
that we have to go that deep because that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it
But with
is.
Nancy and Jonathan, what I think is interesting about their arc now, and it just kind of came to me actually, this idea of exposing this dark realm to the light,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
bringing it to the masses. It's almost like they're taking up this, paralleling it to the Bible and the Christian
Yeah.
church. It's almost like they're taking up this
Yeah.
apostle like role, right? Of like, hey,
We've
we
Yep.
need to bring this message to the world about what's really going on in
They need the
Hawkins,
truth. Yeah.
you
Yep.
know? And them kind of meeting Murray and them trying to figure out how to approach it because Murray makes a great point. Like, you bring the message to the world. You can just tell them what's going on, but as soon as somebody of any authority calls BS,
Yeah.
it's back to normal,
Yep.
you know? Because
So what are you gonna do?
because
How are we gonna go about this?
he makes the great point. People like to stay comfortable. People don't want to
Oh.
know. He makes the point that people don't want to know what's behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And
I don't
if that's not spiritual warfare in Christianity, I don't know what is. People don't want to know what's
that
behind
is
the curtain.
so typical today. No one wants to look behind that curtain. No one wants to see it for what it is. No one
Yep.
really wants to get in that battle either. They would rather sit in the pew. They'd rather
Yeah,
stay
even
with behind the wall, safe in the
I was going to
church,
make the point,
keep the world out.
even Christians don't want to know what's behind the curtain.
Yeah, they wanna keep anything that even touches or might bring in the world, even though that's what our whole goal as Christians is
Right.
to welcome the sinner, and so we can see them delivered and set free and live transformed lives and victorious lives, and uh, honestly, to come into a relationship with Jesus Christ. But the the churches in the state, since all these shootings and all the evil out there that's trying to take out anybody of any kind of faith,
Yeah.
um, they're basically shut the doors, locking them up tight, and don't let anybody in.
Yep.
It just blows my mind that, churches used to have open doors.
Yeah.
Open doors. Some of them left them open at night even.
Yeah.
But it's changed so much because of the evil out in the world, and so this is a great mirror in this scene is they are out to do this exposing, and Murray's like, "Wait a second, you better," basically he's telling him, "You gotta have a plan, you gotta figure this out
Yeah.
because it's gonna be shut down, no one's gonna deal with this." So they basically strategize
Yeah.
and how to
Which
approach this and how to expose it
which
and
is
who to send it
something
to and who to get the
yeah.
information to.
Which is something we as Christians often don't do, and we maybe should do. Like, there's nothing wrong
Strategize?
with a little strategy and organization. And I think about where we're at as the church today, right? It's like you said, we're afraid to even engage with the world. It's what we're talking about. It's what this whole episode's through line is we as Christians are afraid to engage with culture because of what's on the surface level. The only
Yeah.
thing Christians are seeing right now surrounding Stranger Things is, a character came out as gay. So bad.
It's crazy.
And people are staying on that surface level. And
Yeah.
then the world sees how Christians are responding to that and going, one more reason for me not to explore this truth.
Well, they're already so, they've already lost faith for the most part
Yeah.
in the church because not only for how we react instead of respond to the world, we could get in deeper than that, but also
Yeah.
how we treat each other.
Yeah. It's a gang war. I've
Denomination
often
here, right?
yeah.
I'm gonna just call them all because it's we have well, I'll start with AG because I feel safe there maybe. We have AG, we have Baptist, we have Southern Baptist, we have Catholics, we have Lutherans, we have Methodists, we have Reformed, and so much more. And you know what? We can't even come together and agree on the absolutes
Yeah.
and come together and worship together without some kind of ruffle or and pastors trying to be protect their flocks against the church at large
Yeah.
because there's so much within it that they find controversial or they can't agree on, that they're afraid that their little sheep that have been serving and in the church for 40 years are going to get stolen from them.
Yeah.
Like if they can get stole from you,
You're not doing a good job.
you're at 30 years into them attending your church, I think you have bigger issues than letting the world in
Also making the
or
assumption
letting
that
the other
they're also making
churches
the
be
assumption
involved.
that they're your sheep
Yeah,
in the first
they're his
place.
sheep, by the way.
Yeah.
By the way, let's clarify that right now. They're his sheep.
You're the
And a
shepherd
good
for
shepherd,
hire.
yeah. You're if you're a good shepherd, a Bible believing shepherd,
Yeah.
you realize that you are an under shepherd,
Yeah.
not the shepherd. And so and I'm not trying to be in your face, blatant, bold, and cause issues, but I carry credentials myself, ordination papers. I
Pastoral
think
presence, baby.
and I've had a church, I planted a church, and I've served in other churches, and I think I have an idea of how this thing works and how it will work effectively.
Mhm.
And I also have an idea of, and I've watched pastors serve and do that contain out of fear.
Yep.
Try to control out of fear. And listen, control is one of the very things that gave the enemy a foothold in this particular series. And it is a very, very popular foothold in the church and in the world. Control.
The crazy
Huge.
thing is in his little spiel about like how if anybody with any ounce of authority calls BS, he mentions pastor in the list, priest.
Oh, does he? I didn't even remember.
Yeah, he says any politician, priest, whatever that,
Okay.
he had a long list. And he says if any of these people call BS, it's over. Like people are just going to
Yeah.
go back to their everyday lives,
And back then they would have.
Yeah.
Not today
and
so much,
like I said, he makes the
but
good
back
point
then.
that like people don't want to see behind the curtain. They want to stay comfortable, and I'm like, yeah, that's how the world works. People don't want to see behind the curtain, whether you're talking crazy conspiracy theory or something as simple as the truth of the gospel. That's why so many people just would rather, that's why people get awkward when you bring up Jesus,
Yeah,
because
they don't know what to do with it.
I think inherently at our core, we understand that it's truth. Right. And so so whenever the truth is brought up, people get awkward around the truth. They don't want to know the truth.
Well, there's power in that name, like you said,
Well,
Tim.
there's
Power in that
a
name. When it's just spoken,
responsibility.
there's power in
Well,
it.
and the Bible says that once you know the truth, you have a responsibility with that truth, with what you do with it. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, and I think people at their core, it's written in our DNA to know that.
Yeah.
So
they go in to expose what's going on behind the scenes. They find an underground movement of a different who were they? Were they I don't were they from military movement underground in the mall?
Oh yeah, no. So season 2, Jonathan and Nancy's mission is to kind of expose. And they succeed in it in a way, but they do it by watering down the truth, right? They do it by like instead of Barb getting killed by a demogorgon from another dimension, a creature from another dimension, she was killed by a leak from Hawkins' lab. Is how they kind of so it's like a partial truth, right? And so Hawkins' lab actually gets shut down at the end of season 2, and then we find out in season 3 that the mall that's established, again sticking with the decades, of like mall life was starting to kind of take off in 85, right?
Oh, big time. That's what we did. We hung out there all day.
Yeah, and so the mall that we find out is planted in Hawkins is actually funded by the Russian government, and they're using it to cover up their experimentation down in the basement where they're trying to open another gate to this dimension because they found out about it. And we find out later that they're also trying to get in season 4. I don't want to get too deep into season 4, but later in season 4, we find out that they were taking the creatures from this other dimension to use as weapons, to train as weapons. And so that's kind of cool because there was a lot of, again, in the mid 80s, there was a lot of fear around Mother Russia, right? There was a lot of fear around.
Oh yeah. And aliens were starting to
invasion from Russia, aliens, all this stuff. So tying into the decade, that's a really cool story arc as well. I don't know. Let me know if you feel differently. I don't know that there's any real spiritual parallel between. You do? You do? You have something?
So it's an underworld for one.
Oh yeah.
It's not an upside down.
Yeah.
But it's another level of the spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
It's
you could almost
the surface.
You could almost liken them to the Satanic Church in a way.
Yeah, it's the demonic presence working in the natural realm.
Yeah, it is.
That's how I see it.
It's almost like the reason I say you could liken them to the Satanic Church is because the Satanic Church, their philosophy is it's all about loving yourself. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing.
Yeah.
But they don't realize, and they use Satan's name as their God because it's a mockery of Jesus. It's supposed to be like, love yourself. It's really just about loving yourself. And they're not actually, their thing is we're not actually worshiping Satan. We just use him as our figurehead because it's the opposite of whatever you guys are doing, and so what I say, and you can parallel it to the Satanic Church, is that it's on our plane, right? But it's still underground. It's hidden. It's
underground. It's hidden.
And
just hidden enough that we're unaware.
Yeah.
People who don't want to be aware don't have to be.
Yeah.
If you're not digging, you're not going to find it. If you're not looking to expose truth, it's there and you're not going to see it. So this is where I see the realms, and this is what I'm talking about, the levels. We see it here now manifesting in this physical realm, but the presence behind what they're doing, the ones driving that force is definitely the enemy. Is definitely evil driving that force. So this is the underground but surface level demonic presence, and then you're going into the upside down, and then it's later on we find out more, and I don't want to go any further, and then I'm like, oh, this is what Tim was talking about. It's so so then I got it, but I definitely see the parallel that yes, this is a realm. This is actually a very good portrayal of the realms of the demonic. So,
Yeah, and season 4 and 5, I'm excited to get into those when we do on the next episode, because that's where season 4 and 5 are, where the spiritual parallels are so obvious and
yeah.
so present, and down to even the imagery that they use, right? Of like Vecna at the table with the 12 kids,
Oh,
clearly
yeah.
mirroring almost an
Yeah.
antichrist. It's
Yeah.
clearly an antichrist figure of like, yo, straight up
Yep.
mimicking. And so again, we'll get to that in the next episode. We're going to split this into 2 parts because we're going a little long for Mom's taste. So so yeah, we'll just make this season 1 through 3 spiritual analysis. I think we went deep. We did good. I hope that people kind of see what we're doing here and respond to it in a open-minded way, I guess,
Yeah.
because
I do too.
yeah.
I do too. This is new for me. Everyone, I'm just going to speak to the people right now. This is new for me, and I will say this, that, and I'll touch on that more when we hit season 4, because it really did, at that moment when I had to pause and press pause. What I didn't realize is I was going to experience a little bit of a breakthrough that I have probably needed for I don't know how many years. So, anyways, so what I want to say is, don't be so quick to say,
Yeah.
maybe pray about whether or not. I'm not promoting Stranger Things, but I would promote, and this was where it could be maybe a little controversial on my part, Tim, is because if you're allowing your kids to watch it,
Yeah.
I think you parents should watch it too. And that's my personal.
Which again, I'll echo the sentiment that this isn't a kid's show.
Yeah.
So I do want to end the episode by kind of bringing up my quarrels with how, just to cap it off, in case this is the only episode that they watch of this breakdown, this spiritual analysis. To cap it off, I just kind of want to bring up some quarrels that I have with how, and we went over this on our last episode of Alt that we did. There's probably going to be an episode between this one and part 2, because I don't want to do 3 weeks in a row of Stranger Things. I think it'd be a little bit much for people.
Yeah.
But in case this is the only one you watch and you didn't watch the previous episode, I just think we are missing the mark on how we respond to this stuff as Christians. I think that, like I said, a big thing surrounding this show right now is that Will came out as gay in the final season, which, if you really watch the show and analyze it as Mom and I are doing now, Will was gay from season 1, and it was very obvious.
At least he was confused.
He was at least he was
started.
The confusion started in the sense that we don't really get much of Will in season 1, but we learn about his character through his mom. Again, that connection that she has to him, and her alluding to that he's different. He's very different from his friends. He's very different from other boys. And then in season 3, we see that again. That's something we kind of miss. In season 3, Will is kind of almost shoved to the background, and he's kind of third wheeling the whole time while Mike and Lucas are dealing with their relationships, and he's feeling like the outcast. And there's a scene outside of Mike's garage after Will gets upset, and he kind of storms off because all the kid wants to do is play D&D with his friends like the old days.
Yeah.
And Mike kind of goes off on him and says, "It's not my fault you don't like girls."
Yeah.
And he didn't mean it in that way.
He didn't.
But he realizes in the moment, the way that Will responds, that Mike almost seems like Mike realizes in the moment, like, oh, that hit deeper. That hit something sensitive.
That hit a nerve.
So, and I say all that to say that it's obvious that Will being gay was a main thing from the beginning. Not a main plot point, but it was there. It was present throughout the show.
Yeah.
And so it shouldn't have been any surprise that he was gay, especially to Christians who watched the show when he comes out in season 3 or season 5. And then also in season 3, we're introduced to the new character of Robin.
Well, yeah, we didn't even talk about that. Oh my goodness.
And I don't even know again, I don't know how much spiritual depth there is to Robin, or her arc,
No, she just is.
because she's kind of a
She's
side
already
character, but she's
side
gay.
character.
She comes out as gay to Steve. And there is something there probably with the way that Steve responds, and I believe that, again,
His kindness.
and sympathy in that moment, I think is probably the Christ-like way to respond, to be honest.
Steve's character is his personality, his belief system, all that is now changing and shifting.
Yeah.
To be a deeper person.
Yeah.
A deeper thinking, deeper caring, all those things. So when she ends up saying, "Oh, I'm not," because he asks her out basically.
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, yeah, I'm not."
Yeah. Like
interested.
she does, and that's the crazy thing, is she doesn't even say she's gay.
Yeah.
She's like kind of beating around the bush, and Steve just gets it. And he puts two and two together, and then he kind of starts talking with her and joking around with her.
And they become very close friends.
Like he's talking to one of his dude friends who is interested in a girl. And and the reason I bring this up, and I think Steve is also, he has the most character development throughout the whole show, from season 1 to season 5.
He does.
Molding, especially in these first couple seasons, he goes from the kind of jock character, but he has this likable way about him. Even in season 1, I found myself drawn to his character in a way. And like I said, he gets humbled in season 1 real quick by Jonathan, and then he turns tail pretty quick into being a good guy. And then coming around in season 1, just in season 1, from the beginning to the end, he doesn't even hesitate to protect Jonathan and Nancy when they're fighting the Demogorgon. And then season 2, he kind of becomes the protector of the kids, right? It kind of becomes the joke in the show of like,
him and Dustin really
I'm always the babysitter, but him and Dustin grow really close. Mm-hmm. And season 3, him and Dustin are like that, and they're best friends, and he'd be like this mentor figure to Dustin.
Yeah.
And
Dustin was the actual one that encouraged Steve to ask her out.
And and the spiritual side to that, I would say, is that Steve becomes the prime example of what it means to be a man and a protector. And I think he ultimately, he takes his responsibility seriously. This responsibility that was almost thrust upon him through circumstance. He takes it seriously to the point where he's constantly getting beat to a pulp and outmatched. Which also is a joke, which also is a running joke, because in season 3, when they're in the Russian base and they infiltrate it and he beats the Russian guy, Dustin's like, "You did it. You won a fight."
That was funny.
That was a funny joke. But
I wanted to say this too. In this, we also see Nancy turning into kind of like a Rambo.
Yeah.
All of a sudden she's turning from this prissy, goody two shoes, and now she's turning into this, I don't even know what you want to call her, but like all of a sudden this righteous, like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to expose this. I'm going to take care of it all in one. I'm going to be that. I'm not going to be this prissy girl anymore. I'm going to get this job done. So you see a lot of character development in season 3.
All of the characters develop so well, and in natural ways too. Like, even though if you looked at season 1 Nancy compared to season 5 Nancy, you'd be like, is this even the same person? But as the show progresses, you're like, oh, I know how she got here. Or as the show progresses, I know how Steve got here. I know how Robin got, like, I know how all these characters got to where they are.
Well, and you see this friction, a little bit of friction too, between Robin and Nancy.
And because Nancy misreads the situation and thinks that there's this thing,
that she still cares for. So you see, but that also helps to keep the interest in the, just like this would. So you're dealing in the spiritual realm to me, all right? But they're not neglecting the playful, physical,
the human side, the human
side of what teenagers go through and kids go through. So they're dealing with all these emotions, these feelings, the hormones, you're dealing with all
Mhm.
this kind of stuff. But at the same time, we have this very serious warfare battle going on
Yeah.
in that spiritual
They
realm. So
present
it's
it
kind of a
again.
cool they present it.
I think authenticity is the name of the game here. I think they just do
Yeah.
such a good job at presenting everything authentically. It's like, hey, these are still just kids trying to navigate teenagehood and childhood and adolescence, and these parents are dealing with their own stuff in the background,
Yeah.
and the dynamic between the way the parents are responding to the kids, and we'll see that even more in season 4 of like parents coming to realization like, oh, our kids are involved in stuff that we don't even know about.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like, so I'm excited to get to season 4 and 5, but again, we're running a little long here, so we'll leave that for another episode.
Yeah, we better wrap this up.
Yeah, so but I would just encourage Christians, I'll cap it off by saying I would encourage Christians, just open your mind a little bit to, I'm not saying you have to watch these things. It's up to your discernment. That's fine. Your discernment is what keeps you close with Christ. But don't write things off that somebody else is into, because the reality is, and I think we proved it throughout this episode, that you can extract biblical values and you can extract spiritual lessons from things where it doesn't necessarily seem like they're present on the surface level. And I've always been a big believer in that, so
Your mom's coming along.
We're getting her there, but the fact that we are even able to have this conversation right now, Mom, is a miracle in and of itself. So I think,
if they knew where I was 3 years ago, absolutely. Absolutely. And I wouldn't say I would say it's for the good, because I believe this will benefit kingdom in the end. I think it'll benefit teaching. I think it'll open my eyes to we talked about this a little bit, to reach in and not only talk about things that I'm not aware of, or things that I might have heard something about, but I really don't have the knowledge or to speak on it. Or and therefore I shouldn't be speaking on it. But what I like about this is I believe this will be a tool to help me reach into a generation that maybe I couldn't have touched in that way before. Yeah, they might think I'm all right and might think I'm just crazy enough to let them in their life, but this adds a deeper, I think I will say deeper, a deeper level of contact for me, to be open to when I maybe see um opportunity to use what I've learned through this, or what I've seen and been able to mirror in the realms in this. I think it could be a great weapon, a great tool, but not only that, a great conversation piece to
yeah,
be able to pull in spiritual truth. So yeah,
absolutely.
I'll quit
Cool.
rambling.
No, that's all good. And I think it was a good way to cap off this first part. So if you like what you saw here and you want to see more, be sure to check out our podcast, All Perspective. I think this is episode 29 of the show, maybe somewhere around there. So there's almost 30 episodes for you to go back and watch. And then we've got our brand new podcast, The Adam Perspective, just dropped. So go check that out.
Good. So good.
And then, lots of content on there. There's some of Mom's old videos of her teaching on the Book of John, which in fact sounds like might be getting reignited soon. Maybe
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Star, I think I'm gonna have Star help me on that. That'd be cool.
Okay.
So, if he's open to that.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say is, aren't next week, isn't our podcast we're gonna introduce our new friend in the faith and
So
Isaac?
next week. So part 2 to this will be 2 weeks from now. Like I said, I don't want to do 3 episodes of Stranger Things in a row, or Stranger Things related stuff, because the first episode we did wasn't really about Stranger Things. It was just about, that was the inspiration. And then Mom was like, yo, we got to do the whole show. I'm like, oh, okay. Wild.
I'm still shocked myself.
So we will do seasons 4 and 5, a spiritual analysis in the vein of this as well. That's going to be 2 weeks out though, because next week we are going to have an episode with Isaac, where we're going to be talking about the future of alt perspective, vision casting, letting you guys know what's going on in the background, what we have planned. And also Project 714, how that's going to play into all this as well.
Yeah.
So be sure to check that episode out when it drops. We're excited to introduce you to Isaac.
I think it's going to be fun with the three of us.
I mean, technically, he's already been introduced on Adam Perspective. He's my co-host for that show. So be sure to check that out if you want to kind of get a feel for him. And yeah, check out the episode next week where he's going to be on Alt with us for the first time. So
it could be a great explosion with the three personalities all together at once. I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We still got to figure out how we're going to film that. If we're going to do it at tracks or if we're going to do it over video. So I'll talk to him, see what's best for him. But
sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of All Perspective. It's been great. We pray the Lord's blessings over all of our audience and that you will continue to enjoy our content. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share. Everything you do helps us out. So please engage with us however you can. Anything you want to say, Mom? Goodbye, maybe?
No, have a wonderful week, right? Hopefully we'll see you sooner than next week because there's so much other content for you to join us on our lives and all that. We'd love to hear from you if you'd pop in and you can chat with us on that. That would be amazing to get some chat going with you. And so yeah, check out our other content too. It'd be great to get to know you more through that.
All right. Thank you for joining me, Mom. You have a wonderful rest of your evening. Have fun grocery shopping, and I will see you next week. I'll see you between then, but we'll see you, the audience, next week. Thank you for joining us.
You next. That's right. That's right. Have a great one.